up, RotoGrinders? Dean here. Dean 7904, joined by the usual suspects. Started 2.5 hours NFL DFS content, taking y'all straight up to lock. It's 2/3 of the Tournament Takes podcast crew. As per usual, it's Bobby and Kirkwood. It's week 6, Kirkwood, and we were talking pre-show about it, and week 6 is pretty straightforward. The game of the year, whatever you want to call it, Buffalo versus KC. One of these games is not like the other as far as the total. Of course, there's some expensive pieces. That's a big decision point as far as the slate. The other decision point we kind of touched on is all the cheap running backs, all the the 5-6K running backs, depending on where you're shopping. And those are the two big decision points as far as this slate. The 1,000 foot screenshot as far as this slate. I think those are two big deciders as far as how your lineup's going to be turning out today. What say you as far as that? Your overall thoughts as far as week 6 before we fully dive in and break it down position by position?
Yeah. So what I was saying, I guess it's straightforward in the fact that we have the massive total game, like you said, but there's actually two, and it's also, I have the Seattle Arizona game rated extremely high today, which scares the crap out of me because I know I'm going to jump in on Geno Smith today, and I know how this story ends. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like, at least, but everything says I should play him. So and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm hoping this show gives me more clarity by the end of it as to how confident I'm going to be with the running back plays. I mean, we have running back value galore. Is any of it bad chalk? I don't know. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation. People aren't aware. We'll catch them up. But Ramondre Stevenson, we presume the backfield's going to be his. Harris not officially ruled out, but it seems like that's going to be the case. Maybe Belichick's just playing games over there. Arizona, Eno Benjamin looks like the last man standing. Kenneth Walker should take over the number one role there in Seattle with the absence of I forgot the guy's name. But he's been gone. He got hurt last week. He's done for the year, and I just lost his name in my head. The situation and for the Rams, Akers is not available, so Darrell Henderson theoretically is going to be the guy, but Brown is somebody that's called up and available as well. Indianapolis, Jackson, and I guess Phillip Lindsay, 1 and 1A combination there as far as the running backs. The absence of Taylor, the absence of Hines, just a plethora of kind of cheap to mid-tier running backs. What is different this year as opposed to years past? But these guys aren't dirt cheap. They're not 3K like they used to be many years ago on DK. And they're not even 4. They're they're in the 5s, even the 6s. Stevenson 7.5 on FanDuel. There's no discount there really, but the role should basically be his. Say hello to Bobby Gomes, one-time millionaire. It confirms it in the background as far as his backdrop. Bobby, your thoughts as far as this slate before we kind of break it down. And I didn't mean to besmirch the Arizona-Seattle game for sure. That one is really interesting as well. And also just, Bobby, general thoughts as far as the way the schedule lines up, right? We have 11 games, teams on bye. This is the smallest main slate we've had so far this year, and 2 of the 3 late games are the 2 most appealing games on the slate, arguably. Does that change things for you? What kind of backloading stuff? That's where the Arizona game resides. That's where the KC game resides. Bobby, welcome to the show, and general thoughts as far as this conversation.
Yeah, if you're shipping early today, you probably want to be a little skeptical because everyone's going to be backloaded. There's late swap equity too. Guys like Christian McCaffrey and Cooper Kupp, if plays that you use early bust, you can kind of get up to them rather than play the plays from Seattle, Arizona, or Buffalo, KC. Interesting slate, though, with all this value. A lot of just everything breaking the way it did, and then having those 2 games with the totals that they have. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of inaccuracies in ownership, and it's tough to quantify ownership projections when on a slate like this, right? The projections in this industry have been they're the best they've ever been. But even now, you're going to get guys, especially in this value running back range, that I think we can take advantage of in terms of pivots. That's kind of how I'm approaching it right now. I was in the same situation as Kirkwood going into this morning, and then I had more clarity. I didn't have really any conviction, and now I think I have a little bit more.
The other part with projections you're touching on, and I hear it's kind of the players are getting too good, and everybody's kind of adjusting, and everybody's kind of saying, well, if this guy's going to be so low honed, all of a sudden now people are adjusting and there's like no perfect system. There's no perfect way.
Do you think that the player, the other side of that is, can people just, it's just the way these slates have broken down, the projections maybe are on the bad side in terms of like the last 3 weeks. Like, I know there's this narrative that there's like this edge that people have gotten better and stuff like that. Like, I think you can make the case, but on the other side of that, we don't really know, right? Like, just see how, like, maybe the projections had a bad 2 weeks, just how these slates are moving.
Well, the other thing is like the projections are for, like Millie Maker contest, right? It's not for single entry contest. And you're absolutely going to see disparities in contests as far as ownership in single entry versus the Millie Maker. You can't have projections for every different kind of, style of contest. Like, that's just not possible. It's not reasonable as far as a delegation of time. But do you have a thought on that, Kirkwood, as far as projections and how accurate they may or may not be? How much do you use that? You have like your one main lineup. So I don't want to speak for you. Speak for yourself. How do you handle that?
I certainly, when I play 150, which I will be playing today, I certainly look at it. I use it as a guide. I also, you kind of know what if you run enough lineups, what's going to be spitting out for a lot of people. A lot of people play just like a strict, a lot of people where they just let the projections dictate their lineups and they do some correlation and whatnot. So you get a good feel about ownership. Do they feel like they've been wrong so far this year? I don't know. There's always shocks, but you know what I mean? Like, we've been down this road forever. It's the same to me. So it doesn't really shape. I don't think it's been terrible, to be honest with you. I think the ownership projection are fine. I think we know what the chalk is going to be. Yeah, we might flip over our cards at lock and be like, damn, but that we can't, it's tough to predict that. Like, who's going to be the leverage for today, or whatnot. So, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but I definitely use ownership. Sure, definitely.
All right. So projected ownership has this shouldn't surprise anybody. Josh Allen is the number one projected quarterback today. If you're playing cash games, I think you just play Josh Allen and you kind of move on as far as that position. In tournaments, will be the highest owned as well. On FanDuel, we're looking at over 20% in tournaments as far as Josh Allen, the lead quarterback in that Kansas City Buffalo shootout. Of course, Mahomes is there as well. And what is interesting in that is that Mahomes is seeing, 7% ownership versus 16, 17% on DK. We got Kyler Murray in the middle of that. Geno Smith, you're going to go all the way down. Brady's still really cheap against a Pittsburgh team that is bad and their secondary is decimated. Just like how much does Brady need to pump is he going to pump the brakes in the fourth quarter? We'll see how that game turns out. But theoretically, he could go for a 303, 304 relatively easily. And then, Lamar Jackson, if he's going to be kind of sort of somewhat ignored, I wouldn't say that fully, but 7-8% on DK, that's kind of our projections right now. It feels like there's a big opportunity cost, Bobby, the quarterback today. Would you agree with that? And how are you approaching it with that understanding?
Yeah, so I'm definitely playing Allen. I think there's 3 others that I'll probably be playing too, one being Kyler. I think he's in a really good spot, and he correlates well with Marquise, who should see lower ownership than what he probably should, given his usage in that offense over the last 3 weeks. Tom Brady, I think at 6K, like there's a lot of he's just in such, it's cheap. His weapons are cheap. The run backs on Pitt are cheap. Pitt threw 52 times being behind last week against the Bills. You could see a similar situation here. And now they're at home, so it takes away. I think they're pretty positive they're at home, right? Like
it's in Pittsburgh.
It's in Pittsburgh. So they're not going to – it's going to be easier. They're not going to have the crowd. I like Pickens. And then even on that, the other side of that, my 4th QB, I think is going to be Pickett, because those guys are – you can go to Pickett, Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and they're way too cheap. So those are the 4 that I'm kind of centering my builds around.
Just general rules, Bobby. Do you feel like you always have to run it back? Because we've seen it before. We saw it last week where the millionaire winner last week had 3 Tampa Bay pieces with nobody on the other side. It was a weak opponent. I can't remember who it was. Might have been Atlanta or something. I don't recall. But and it sounds like you're embracing the cheap stuff on Pittsburgh. But theoretically, Do you always run it back as a general?
So their team total isn't great, right? Like usually I wouldn't do this, but it has more to do with the prices. I don't think it was an industry narrative forever that you had to run it back. I don't think that you have to necessarily. I'm just banging on that Pitt's going to throw more than they probably should, and they're underpriced. But like with Josh Allen teams this week, I don't think you necessarily need a run back. Same thing with Lamar teams. I don't think you necessarily need a run back.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I think it's not a completely crazy thought. And KC could theoretically put up 24 points, and still not one person gets there because how the ball's spread out there. And
they're so expensive. Like all those guys are so expensive.
Yeah. Well, the receivers are all terrible.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? Run like 75 lineups with or 75 to 100 lineups with a run back, and then another 50 and build out your Lamar and your Brady lineups?
I just set my rules like at most one. So if it hits, it hits. And then, or at least one if I think like I need it. You know what I mean? That's kind of just and it'll hit in that case, right?
Kirk, what are your thoughts as far as quarterbacks? How much you're prioritizing, Josh Allen and, Mahomes? I think Lamar, I do like the run back with Barkley. I don't really like any of the Giants receivers. We might get Wan'Dale Robinson today. He's super cheap and in the conversation as potential cheapies. I don't know. Do we have a thought on him is he a full go? Like this will be his first game of the year. Have we got a report on that? Is that significant in any way? And there's not a lot of cheap stuff out there. The Saints will talk about the cheap receivers there just because there's basically nobody left for the Saints with all the injuries they have. Thomas being out, Olave being out. Jump in there, Kirkwood, as far as your quarterbacks.
My quarterback. So as Bobby, I like some of the ones that Bobby said, obviously. I mean, I love Kyler Murray today. I loved him last week. I played him last week. I cashed last week, barely, but who's playing for him in cash? But like, I'm just on him. I just think he's going to continue to get better. This offense is going to continue to get better as they get healthier. Rondale Moore looked serviceable last week, gives him another option. I think Eno is fine for a running back, and he's good in the passing game. So to me, that works. Hollywood has been electric, and basically this is the game. These are the two worst coverages in the NFL playing against each other. We've already seen what some of these Seattle games do. And also with Kyler is that he's been making an attempt to run these last 2 weeks. He got 42 yards, only on 4 rushing attempts, but he had 12 rushing attempts the week before. It was the first three games, or it was really the third against the Rams, where we were like, he only ran 2 times for 8 yards. Like he's just not running was the narrative. But I think you're going to start seeing more and more of him running. So, and it's cheap, right? And you can, and it's also, how to play this game, right? Like we know where the Seattle production should come from, right? So there's just a couple of ways to play it. I mean, and I also love Geno Smith on the other side. So I'm going to be all over that game. I know it's chalky, but I'm going to be really heavy on that and really underweight on the Buffalo KC game. Yeah.
Is that true with your one main lineup too, as far as being underweight?
No, it's not true with my one main lineup. My one main lineup, I don't know if I need to make that stand with Kyler. I think I can just play Josh Allen, and I'll probably use Diggs and then and go from there over on Yahoo, where I'll have a bunch of money on that one lineup. But as far as like for the MME, for like the baller contest, also if I MME some DK, and I'm in a bunch of DK stuff too. 3 single entry, 3 entry stuff, some high dollar single entry stuff. So I'll probably be fading the KC Buffalo game completely on those.
Do you want to say what's up to the chat? Kindly hit that like button, do subscribe, turn on those notifications. Again, 2+ hours, taking y'all straight up to lock. We're here for another, 30, 40 minutes or so. I haven't done the math just yet. And then we'll be relieved by, I believe, SquirrelPatrol will be coming on. Squirrel, of course, has won. He's won his way to 1 billion live finals. I don't know what the number is precisely, but he's basically at every single live final that exists, as well as TJ. And then you got another $1 million winner, Andre jumping in, TheLuuch, and Kristi Krayton as well, with crunch time taking y'all straight up to lock. Jared in chat talking about Burrow and Chase back to Louisiana, back to LSU. That would be the last one I'd probably throw in the conversation, Kirkwood. I think Chase, Burrow, that New Orleans game in a dome, no elements. I don't know how that's a tricky game. I don't really know what to do with that one. You have a general thought as far as Cincinnati against?
Yeah, I like this spot.
Yeah,
I like this game. I mean, this game is, first of all, there's a lot of late pieces that I've opened up now with Olave being out, right? So I know the Blitz for one and we could have predicted this. The Blitz always loves New Orleans in the dome.
Yeah,
and it's a tale as old as time, but it's had great success there. So I mean, we've got Callaway, who's interesting. Marquez Callaway played with my nephew, played on the same football team in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's fun watching. So I'm like, I have to play a little Marquez Callaway today for the family. You know what I mean?
More so than Keith Kirkwood. Kirkwood is the
word. I mean, he's my dog, right? Like if he's in play, I'm going to be all in on him. But I have a signed Keith Kirkwood jersey.
Do you really?
Yeah, my girl DM'd him on Instagram and got it for me for Christmas without me knowing. It was pretty cool. Killer Keith. But anyways, so the other ones I like. So I love Burrow. I mean, Jamar. So first of all, Chase, this is like the nut Chase spot, right? He's cheap, 7,700. We know he can absolutely break a slate. There's no Lattimore. So the Saints D is good, but it's a watered down version. It's in the dome, and then we've got cheap run backs. I mean, you don't need cheap. I mean, Kamara is an awesome play too.
He's due for some positive regression. You have to score a touchdown.
You give him
Hill siphons every single one of them.
Yeah, if you had to throw a couple touchdowns on there last week, man, he absolutely nukes the slate.
Yeah, we're not certain about Higgins. It seems unlikely, but I did see he's getting worked out before the game. 11:30, the actives and inactives come out for that, but my guess would be Higgins doesn't go.
But even if he goes, I feel like it's more like of a decoy situation. Like, I mean, he re-aggravated his hamstring. Those are always iffy to begin with. So even if he's out there, I'm not expecting like a full go.
Oh, you mentioned Callaway. You talked about Kirkwood. What about the Proud of UCF, Traquan Smith?
Yeah, Bobby can answer that one. I'm sure he's got some. Do you have some Traquan in there?
I do not have any Traquan.
Oh, that's a mistake.
You think so?
I mean, yeah, why not? Why is Callaway distinctly better than Traquan Smith?
No, I know. Traquan's the burner too, right?
He could be a home run hitter too, yeah.
Yeah.
You could stack him up with Gabe Davis, get that UCF stack. That sounds a good time.
Yeah.
Dean's alma mater.
There you go. Let's move on from quarterback. Let's talk about running back.
Well, wait a minute. We still got to talk about Lamar, and then we got to talk about some pivots, right? Like quickly.
Okay, well, we only have so much
time. I know. But quickly, we got to is there any love for Aaron Rodgers today? He's been pretty bad. Teams have been daring him to throw it long. Do you think they're going to adjust and actually?
How does he get there? He's got to go for 304, 303, right? He's not going to run anything in. How much does he have to do? Every single play he puts down like the 1 second clock. It seems like he milks it like crazy as far as snap count and all that. I mean, he should be okay, but I'm not excited about playing Aaron Rodgers.
He's at home versus the Jets. We've seen him break many of slates throughout his career. A guy who likes to pad his numbers when things are going right. I have to play some Aaron Rodgers today. I don't love it, but you know what I mean? He's 6,100. He's 2K off of these other guys in the higher
Dobbs or
range.
Lazard, who's your favorite pairing?
I like them both, and that's the beauty of it. You can double it if you want to.
And also Greg mentioning in chat about Rodgers got that thumb issue. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I mean, I like his pieces a little bit just because they're cheap. Dobbs has like 5.5 on FanDuel. Lazard getting a lot of air yards. If that does anything for you. Do you have a thought on that, Bobby, before we move on?
Yeah, I think you were on a show earlier in the week, and someone was talking about how Rodgers really hasn't been throwing it deep, so that would be one of the his average depth per throw isn't very high, so that would be a little nerve-wracking for me, even though I know he could shred the Jets.
Yeah. Earlier in the week, Wednesday, you guys had the Friday night show or the Friday afternoon show with your tournament takes with JSU, but I'm on with two really, really smart dudes. If you guys are not aware, Rich Rebar, John Daigle, check out the Pick Six show. It's definitely worth a listen for those guys, not for myself. I'm just there to ask questions. We got to talk running backs. We got to talk the cheapies here, Bobby. How are you handling this? How much are you embracing? Obviously everybody can't be 100% owned because there's a pile of guys that are value running backs. Benjamin right now is coming in as the highest percentage owned on DK. Stevenson right behind him. Benjamin, because he's 4'6", distinctly different as far as the salary. Then Walker, home favorite against Arizona, is at 20%. Benjamin's at 31. Stevenson 29. Stevenson better play on DK than he is on FanDuel. FanDuel he's 7.5, but tournament-wise, maybe he's a better player over there because ownership will matter. I'm a little cautious about Henderson for the Rams. They seem to kind of sort of hate him, but theoretically this is a good spot for him. And who knows how much Brown comes in siphons. We talked about Kamara due for some positive touchdown regression. And they should probably work him into some passes just because how else is that offense going to function? But Dalton's the quarterback. And there's Uncle Lenny, and Tampa's going to be able to do whatever they want against Pittsburgh today, theoretically. What do you got here? Those are, especially up top, Benjamin, Stevenson, Walker, Henderson. How are you handling that, Bobby?
Yeah, so Benjamin, I'm pretty fine playing. I think he's just a good play, 4,700. I don't mind that versus Seattle defense. Stevenson, he's going to hit my builds. I don't know if I'm going to be at the field or a little underweight. Just because it's so with this Patriots backfield, you never know what they're going to do. Like Pierre Strong could be utilized here. I think he is going to be utilized. I just don't know how much. And then you have all this value underneath Stevenson, which I think is going to be basically overlooked. Henderson, I'm just out on completely. Wow. I like Henderson. He's done well by me previously. But Travis Etienne, I think, is in a really good spot. And I think he's going to bust out here soon. So for that reason, especially the Colts D line versus Jags offensive line, there's a mismatch there, and he's right in that Henderson range. If I can just play ETN at that same price tag, I have no issue with that. He's going to be a guy I'm going to be significantly overweight on. And then Breece Hall at 5'8". I think Breece Hall is one of those guys where his ownership is going to be a lot higher. So it becomes an issue if you're seeing him around 10 to 12%, he might come in at 18%. And I think he can come in a little bit higher than what he's showing. But then again, on the other side of that, we've had all this value at this running back position. Remember, Deion Jackson's down there too. There's a ton of guys in that 4.7 to 6K range. So maybe that isn't the case. I'm just going to be over on Breece. That's going to be what I'm going to try to do today.
What's interesting with him is he could have the best day of all running backs of the entire slate last week. And if he did, ownership will probably reflect that. But he was tackled at the one, I think, twice. He was on the field both times for both rushing touchdowns, but he was more like a diversion tactic, a misdirection. And then Carter just got the siphon that touchdown. But theoretically, I feel like the ownership will be distinctly different, like you're suggesting. And maybe that's because the field is getting smarter.
He's a super so I don't know if that's maybe, I guess. I just think the other thing, maybe. I guess you could make that case. The public would be more on Breece, right? Because fantasy football in general, outside of DFS, he's like a darling. Maybe it is getting sharper. And then CMC is going to, I think, break this slate today.
Wow.
I just don't think that enough people are going to be playing CMC, and PJ is going to pepper him. The Rams, traditionally, how you attack the Rams is you run the football. And then with all this value, there's a nice run back with Cup. You can get to Cup at 9.7 if you're doing this correctly. And I think I just like that game. It's in a dome. It's the dome game that people are kind of overlooking because of where the total is. But that secondary stack, I think, is fine, right? I have no issue with that. I think other people will go to Barkley. There's a lot of guys underneath CMC that are going to soak up ownership, but that's pretty much my thought process.
Yeah, a lot of the big price tag running backs are going to be kind of ignored. The Barkley 12% on DK right now, CMC single digit 9%, Kamara at 14, Mixon around 10. He hasn't been spectacular necessarily, but the opportunity certainly has been there. Chubb is just never owned, just people don't like rostering him. He's not good. He's not a good math play, but when he breaks off that 80-yard touchdown, who cares about the math, I suppose? And he doesn't catch the ball. That's why people don't like him. Kirko, your thoughts as far as the cheap running backs, the guys in the mid tier, and it's not that hard to get overweight on guys like CMC or Lenny. Lenny's not going to be terribly owned because, salary is a thing, and this is where you're saving salary. You want to spend up on some receivers, spend it on tight end. Tight end we'll talk about in a second, but yeah, a lot to talk about as far as running backs. Work at it from any angle you want to go for it.
Yeah, so I have a little food for thought with Christian McCaffrey. So they've just announced that they're fielding offers for him, trade talks, right? That there's only a little bit of time left, and with him and Robbie Anderson, are they going to run this guy? Like, are they a little bit worried about his injury history? Like, if they're about to unload this guy, I don't know. That's something that gives me a little bit of caution. Maybe I'm totally wrong with that, but
I think that's a good take. I think that's a good take.
I'll tell you though, to me, Ramondre Stevenson is just the easiest play I've ever seen. And I'm a New England homer, sure. And
on FanDuel too?
I went down. Yeah, I would still play him on FanDuel. It's it's a home run on DraftKings.
Yeah.
But and I went down swinging with both of them last week because Harris got hurt. But like, that's the thing, is Harris got hurt. Ramondre is the talent. Sure, Pierre Strong, who's been banged up to begin with, may get a little action. JJ Taylor may get a little action, but they don't like JJ Taylor. This is the Ramondre show, and this is like the number one matchup. They're 32nd in DVOA versus the run. He played 97% of the snaps. 90% of the snaps once. Last week with Harris down, 27 touches. He's Pro Football Focus, his third graded rusher. He's strong in the receiving game. It's like, what else do you need, to think that this guy's a good play? So he's like my number one. And then I feel really comfortable with, because it's like, how can he bust at 4,600 against Seattle unless he gets injured? Just the price is just too low, right?
He's not going to run a lot though, right? Like, what's his whatever his total was, like 45 rushing yards as far as Vegas is over under. But like, he should catch the ball a good bit. Is that fair to say? I think
he'll. He's the guy, So sure, Kyler could take some away and whatnot, but I think he'll get double-digit rushing attempts.
Okay, yeah. I think Kyler runs a little more and throws a little more. Yeah, and I think you could pair him with Kyler, which is fine too. Like, I'm okay with that also. I assume you are also pairing Benjamin Murray.
Yeah, I don't. He's so cheap that I don't care. It's fine to me. Yeah. And then from there, the interesting one, it's like Kamara looks like a smash. I love your Breece Hall take, Bobby. I love Breece Hall. We've got guys like Mixon who've just seen incredible workloads. Hasn't done much, but there's some touchdown regression coming there. The one I have in my lineups right now, can I play Neon Dion?
I think you can, yeah.
He looked freaking good to me.
He looked good, and the projections are going to give you everyone else. So,
2/3 is that fair? What piece of pie is he getting with him versus Lindsey? Is 60-40? Is that a fair assessment?
I think 60-40 is a good assessment.
Yeah. And a Dome as well too. Theoretically, they're favored as well, and yeah, I think he's fine. I wish this
looked good. He averaged almost 5.5 yards per carry when he was out there. He was good in the pass. Looked good in the passing game. To me, Philip Lindsay didn't look good at all, and that and he had that extra edge playing in Denver. But I think that this at home for Neon Dion here, just. He's faster. He's just more electric. He'll be using the passing game. I just see that like he could pop off. Now I got smashed. I was way too heavy on Jacksonville games last week, so I'm a little scared. But
Christian Kirk, man, he was a killer for me.
It was horrendous. I mean, the whole game. That game was just awful. That game was just horrendous.
Wait, what was the final score? It was like 7-6 or something in that game. It was something silly. It wasn't high. Whatever it was. Wasn't a very fun game from a DFS perspective. I have a little bit of Singletary. Is that Looney Tunes?
Not at all.
Okay. I don't think so. Like, they've shown their willingness to utilize him situationally here. So,
yeah, he can catch the ball as well too. He's not only going to run the ball at the goal line necessarily. And we've seen. I don't think he has a rushing touchdown all season long. I could be wrong on that. But it seems like other guys kind of getting in. I think that's his variant stuff. And he's cheap enough, and it's a good way to get a piece of that game by being a little bit different, I suppose. And people are obviously going to be getting the tight ends. Well, I guess Kelsey The receivers for Buffalo ahead of Singletary. Mostert, I guess that's his job there in Miami. We'll see. I don't know how functional that Miami offense is going to be with Skylar Thompson, but he's another guy in the conversation. But is there anybody else we should focus on here, Bobby, as far as running backs? I feel like we talked about most of them.
I actually think Mostert is very interesting because of his ability to just – this secondary for the Vikings is so slow, and he could just probably – if he breaks one, they're not catching him.
He's a burner.
Yeah, he's a complete burner. So, yeah, I don't hate that call.
Richie Smalls in chat. Any interest in Keontae Ingram? I think that's a little too deep for me. Kirkwood, you have a thought as far as Keontae Ingram? I assume you haven't considered him.
I have no thought, but I do have a thought on Saquon Barkley. It seems like these higher priced guys are just getting, their ownership's going down and down. And now Saquon's going to be very popular in Baltimore stacks. He's like the most common run back, right? So I would probably look to be playing Saquon just alone and outside of the Lamar stacks. But this is a insane matchup for him. The Ravens 26 DVOA versus the run. They also give the second most receptions to running backs and fifth most receiving yards. It's so and probably in a game where he's trailing, right? Against the Ravens. So if this game breaks right, the way that I think it will and the way that it should, then Saquon could just be eating in the passing game.
Kirkwood, Rob's got a question in chat. We didn't really focus a lot on Walker. Is he not a plug and play? Well, he's not a plug and play just because there's so many other plug and plays, right? And everybody can't be a plug and play because, but he's in the conversation of plug and plays, right? If you land on Walker, that's fine. I don't know. Could you prioritize the four? And I guess it depends where you're shopping. Stevenson, I think we all agree, is the best running back on DK dollar for dollar. FanDuel, a little bit different where he's 7.5. Where do you have Walker in that four, the group of four guys?
Yeah, so I have him right outside. So first off, I'm really high on Geno Smith and Lockett and Metcalf today. And unfortunately, I was very low on Lockett last week, and that crushed me, ruined me on Yahoo. I took Brandon Cooks. What a smart play that was. But anyways, this game is going to go one way, right? You just got a game scripted out, right? And so I'm playing the passing game. These are the two worst coverages, right? So that's the way I'm playing it. But if it could very well go to Kenneth Walker. He's electric. He's got a lot of talent. He's looked good, and he got 88 yards in last game in a tough matchup against New Orleans. This is now a much better matchup for him. Pete Carroll could go back to his old ways and just feed this guy. So I think he's a great play. It's just I'm higher on the passing game.
Yeah, Dallas is lurking, DJ Dallas, but he's more of a third down guy. I just put up our consensus rankings. We have Walker number 1 on FanDuel, number 2 on DK behind Stevenson. By the way, you can get a peek at the consensus value rankings along with all of our tools. How would you go about doing that? Just answer this question correctly. I'm going to drop my tweet in the chat. Give me the boldest, most accurate take, and I'll answer it in the tweet, and I pick somebody to win. And now this is what you have to do to win. Somebody last week, you wouldn't believe this one, Kirkwood, but
I saw De'Amon. Yeah.
He said De'Amon Brown's going to get 2 touchdowns and 100 yards. Okay, you win a 1-3 of RG Premium. Because
I think that needs to be investigated, like the poker cheating scandal. This person knew something.
We'll get Joe Ingram on it.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I actually said to somebody, behind the scenes, I'm like, I just want to double check. Not that I'm a
the timestamp on this.
Yeah. I go, I'm an old person. I don't understand how Twitter works. Just confirm. Make sure there's nothing goofy here. And they're like, yeah, no, this looks legit. I'm like, all right. And
so you sent it over to RG Forensics?
Yes, there's a CSI episode in the works about it right now. That would be Alan. If Alan's lurking, I asked Alan. So if somehow it comes out like this person tweeted me at 4:00 and they were able to manipulate the time and they swerved both of us, it's not Alan. There you go. But yeah, that was super impressive. Won himself 1 month free of RG Premium. Answer that question in the tweet that I just dropped in the chat, and you can get yourself 1 month free. And by the way, not just football, all the sports: basketball, football, baseball, hockey, MMA, everything with the exception of NASCAR. Yeah, that's a la carte. And you also get the optimizer and the articles and all the videos and the Blitz video, not the Blitz. But there you go. Yeah, dude, just answer that question and tell me who this week's De'Amon Brown's going to be. All right, let's move on and talk about receiver. Before we do that, we have to talk about Stat Hero. In case you haven't heard of Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform that allows users to compete only against the house, not against other players. You're not playing against Kirkwood. You're not playing against Bobby or myself or anybody in chat. You participate in a head-to-head style contest where Stat Hero provides a lineup that you have to beat with your own, as well as pick'em style contests. You should also check out the Big Dime League, a season-long leaderboard NFL contest with up to $50,000 in prizes. Check that out all season long. We're going to get you all started with a nice, sweet, fat deposit bonus. Grinders, GRINDERS, 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Jump into the action today at Stat Hero. Bobby, receivers, go.
Yeah, Marquise Brown, I think, is a very good play today. He's the guy that I'm going to be targeting in a lot of my lineups. Chase, like I would be prioritizing Chase. We kind of glossed over this at running back, but also very high on Kamara. So those are the two guys. Those are like Chase and Marquise are like they're plays that I'm really interested in. I really like the Chase secondary stack with Kamara and Cooper Kupp. Yeah, Cooper Kupp. Like this team, they're going to be in a lot of third and long situations. I think Alex Santi was on another site show, basically said this. They're in a dome. I think Kupp's going to see they're going to be leading, but they're still going to have to throw just because of how weak that offensive line is. So
can I interrupt
pay
you?
up to Cooper Kupp at 9.7 today, especially the value that we have.
I just want to interrupt because Richie Smalls just pointed something out in the chat, and it's like I just saw it the same thing on my Twitter feed a little while ago. Like I have to, and you just mentioned Jamar Chase. So Burrow just showed up with he showed up rocking the Jamar Chase National Championship jersey to the game, wearing the number 1. So
he's going.
I think we got to rocket ship this. We got to all in this guy.
Yeah, well, it's the double revenge or the double homecoming narrative, right? Burrow and Chase in New Orleans, no Lattimore as well. We're not sure about Higgins. We'll see about that one. I know they're working him out pregame. And again, nothing official. I saw they were talking about on Twitter. I'm kind of jumping back and forth as far as Harris may sneak up and play for New England today. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Stay tuned.
I'll shave my head live on show if Harris plays today.
What Seattle receiver you want, Kirkwood?
Oh man, I mean, I want Metcalf, right?
Yeah,
just because of the ownership play. But like, how crazy is that price on DraftKings for Lockett? The man smashes.
disrespect.
He nukes the slate, and they give him a price decrease again. The best matchup of that he's of the year in a game that's with over 50 point total.
Yeah, he's almost definitely a lock to be in almost everybody's cash game lineup on DK. If it's not, something goofy happened here. Maybe somebody's doing some late swap stuff and they're trying to catch up because they goofed up in their 1 o'clock games. You have a thought on that, Bobby, as far as a Seattle receiver, or the same question, Tampa? Do you want Godwin, or do you want Evans?
I'm gonna have Godwin and Evans a good bit, so I'm gonna have a lot of Brady. But I think I'd prefer Metcalf to Lockett, just because that range around Lockett now after the 2 or 3 good weeks that he's had, there's a lot of guys projecting well. Christian Kirk, Godwin flop lag, like he busted for a lot of people last week. There's more. I just can't think off the top of my head.
What are the beats speculated as far as Godwin? They speculated that the game was a blowout, and he's coming back from injury, and that's why they kind of babied him a little bit, and it took him off the field to some extent. I don't know how true. I guess that makes sense.
Traditionally, right? Brady shredded Pittsburgh, so and he using the slot receiver, like we've seen that with Edelman. If Godwin's up to speed, I don't mind playing him over Lockett.
I saw Levitan tweet out Brady was wearing a shirt that had Chris Godwin on it. So I don't know. Adjust your. So
Godwin and Chase is
just the all clothing lineup, I suppose. I think this was yesterday, but yeah, it was at some kind of press conference or whatever. Your favorite cheapie, Bobby, because we live in the world of salary cap as far as cheapies, and we've sort of touched on the New Orleans guys. Traquan, Callaway. Moore on DK is projecting pretty well. He's going to be involved in that shootout, presumed shootout with Arizona and Seattle. But Moore is not really a guy that ever really breaks the slate. He might go 6 for 70 or something like that. Maybe he falls into the end zone, but good cash game play. I don't know if I want to be over in tournaments. But yeah, give me the favorite salary saver for you as far as receivers.
Yeah, so I think there are 4 that I have my eye on. George Pickens would probably lead off the group. I think just the big playability that he offers at 4.6, it's tough to really get past that. To just overlook it. It's coming, right? Like he's going to be a 6K receiver by the end of this year. Alec Pierce, we've seen him ball out on a primetime game. You're taking away Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be utilized versus the Jags. Don't mind him. Devin Duvernay, I think, is really good at football. Like, I think he's legit. So I know he doesn't get the targets, but we've seen him utilized more last week than he was previously. But previously, he was just running super hot with touchdowns. So those three are guys that I'm really interested in. And MVS, his projection around the industry seems relatively low. It's the highest total game in the slate. The issue at MVS for me is like it's between the 20s and it's not inside the 20s. However, this week, like I would imagine the Bills are going to do whatever they can. Well, hopefully you would expect to not let Kelce be the guy that beats you in the red zone. So for that reason, I think a guy like MVS taking a shot on him isn't the worst idea. And in large field MMEs, I know going back to running back, you made the same case for McKinnon. I think, but there's just so much value at the running back position. It's super tough to play McKinnon. But I just think that those guys are going to have more roles inside the red zone than they would have usually, just because of how the Bills play in defense. Like they're going to take away Kelce. I'm pretty positive.
I know, like the football hand in the dirt guys. I don't pretend to be that guy, the X's and O's guy, suggesting that this is not necessarily the best matchup for MVS. And we know these Kansas City receivers. Mahomes was talking about earlier in the year, like basically it's gonna be a different guy every single week, a suggestion of a whack-a-mole, and it's been nobody. Like the best performance we've seen as far as like season long, I think is wide receiver 20. Like no receiver has been better. I saw that in a Hardit's tweet. No receiver on KC has been better than the 20th best receiver any week this year, which is just horrendous. But they are really cheap, and Juju looks like old and slow. MVS is really cheap. Hardman's super cheap, more kind of hard to get to, and he's not on the field a ton. Of course, Kelce's the number one option there. How do we handle this, Kirkwood, as far as the KC receivers? Because theoretically, this game's going to shoot out. Is it just Mahomes and Kelce, or do you have a preference as far as your favorite Kansas City receiver?
I'd be lying if I say I really had a favorite KC receiver. I mean, it's tough to figure out. Signs are pointing to Juju. He's had 8 targets in multiple games. He's been looked at in the red zone. I think he went down at like the 5 or something last week. So I would go with him. I mean, MVS has been fine too. It's a crapshoot, to be honest with you. So I don't really know. I mean, Kelce's just the easy pairing, right? I mean, yeah, you would think that they would just lock them up as the best they can. And they also, the interesting thing about the Buffalo defense is the one guy, the one game where Mark Andrews has been absolutely stopped was against the Bills. So, I mean, that's a little bit concerning. But then you just look at what Kelce's done in the past. And with these games have scored points. These games have gone absolutely nuclear in their last few meetings. So, I mean, how can you not like Kelce? And I think it's kind of crazy. I mean, everyone's saying Mark Andrews over Kelce, and I agree, but it just seems crazy to me though when it's like the marquee game. He's like
also cheaper, by the way. Andrews has been better and he's cheaper, but yeah, I hear you're saying.
Yeah, but it's like there's such a this game has such a higher chance of going back and forth for the entire four quarters than the Giants Ravens.
Bobby,
but then again, Andrews is their target monster.
Yeah. Duvernay, I guess, is the next guy in line, but there's not really much. I like that pairing of Lamar and Andrews and the running back with Saquon. I'm not really sure that's going to be reasonable. I don't know how popular it's going to be, but I guess if you're playing Saquon, you're probably playing Andrews on the other side. But Bobby, I wanted to get your defense in it. You're a big fan of defense. We'll talk about tight ends in a second. Defense is just rough this week. Like last week, we had the Cowboys and like the obvious play, and it worked out scoreboard. There's really no obvious defense play this week. On FanDuel, I think the obvious one is the Rams because they're just distinctly cheaper. They're facing Walker there at 4-4, but they're really expensive on DK. I don't mind Buffalo defense, by the way. I don't think that's completely nuts. Even if they give up 20 points, I think they can still cause a ruckus and get some turnovers. You never know. Pick sixes, and they're cheap. And Mahomes is going to be throwing a lot, and that's how you get defensive points, not necessarily defending the run a ton. Do you have a?
I'm with you on Buffalo. I tagged Buffalo on RG.
Okay, good, nice.
I think the Bills D. This game I think could play different, I guess, than like there's a good chance that this game doesn't go over the total, right? Like everyone's wanted to see the total like 57. It's at 50. It started the week at 54. I don't know where it's at now, but I can see it staying under the total. Bills defense is the best in the league. The KC has so many, like there's a reason why they're projecting the way they're projecting. I know people want to play them, and I think like makes a ton of sense to play them at low ownership. Like it's Pat Mahomes. It's just all Pat Mahomes. And I feel like there's no one really outside of Kelsey. And I think the Bills are going to do a good job of taking away Kelsey. It's where I don't want to have too much allocation to the Chiefs outside of probably like MVS as a cheapie. And then just getting the Bills D in there, I think makes sense because just you're going against the narrative, right? That this game's going to be a shootout.
Even if it's not, like if they give up 20 points, they can still be fine. Like
I think Mahomes is going to throw picks in this game. Like they stay back, they rush for. It's like all the things that they're going to do what they basically did with Tyreek, and I think Mahomes. They're not going to blitz, and I think Mahomes is probably the best in the league outside of like Brady. Him and Brady 1A 1B reading the blitz. They're not going to blitz him, so he's going to have to make decisions, and these receivers aren't going to do him any favors. Because they have to get open in that situation if they're dropping back in zone, and we've seen that they're incapable of that the majority. So, I'm more interested in the Bills D, Jaguars D. I think they're in a great spot. You take out all these guys on Indy, the Falcons D, San Fran's coming across the country. I think they're in play. Panthers D seems like the chalk defense. Yeah. But that's why I think like playing this dome game and playing the secondary stacks in this game makes sense because people don't want to go there for what the total is. They don't want to go there for what the defense is. But this is another dome game where like we've seen with two electrifying players in CMC and Cup, like going there, I think just makes for the secondary makes a ton of sense. I don't know how much Panthers D I'll have, but yeah, that's pretty much the defenses for me.
I mean, the variance is so high in defense, but I did feel so much better about Dallas last week, basically at the same price as Carolina this week. And I don't love that Carolina deep, like you say, if they're going to be highly owned, they're kind of popping up in cash games just for salary cap reasons. Your thoughts quickly, Kirkwood, as far as defense. We got to knock out some tight ends as fast as we can. Obviously, we can't touch on everything, just kind of laying the groundwork, for the slate. Still an hour and 40 minutes taking y'all straight up to lock as far as this stream. No reason to go anywhere. You got Squirrel Patrol coming in just a second, as well as TJ. And then the Crunch Time crew, of course, will follow them, taking some of your questions there in chat. You guys are hanging out in chat. Kindly hit that like button. Do subscribe and turn on those notifications. Basketball right around the corner, by the way. We'll be doing some live basketball shows. Cannot wait for some NBA starting Tuesday night. Kirkwood, tight ends. We've kind of touched on it throughout the show with, Andrews and Kelsey. Do you have a favorite cheap tight end? And if you have a thought as far as defense, by all means, fire it in there.
I'll throw some defense quickly. So I like the Jags. It's Matt Ryan. It just is great at taking a sack. He's just so immobile. And and the Jags will be bringing pressure on him for sure. So I like that play. I'll probably play the Panthers just because they're so damn cheap. But if you want to pivot from the Panthers, I think you could play the Falcons at home against Jimmy G and San Fran. I mean, it's not the greatest feel-good spot, but none of these defenses are. So Falcons would be the one. So for tight end, I mean, the cheap one is Gentry. I mean, we'll talk about the high end, I'm sure. I mean, everyone knows Mark Andrews is probably the best play. I mean, the guy's just an absolute animal. He's had at least 25% target share in 4 or 5 games. There's no Bateman. He's first in receiving yards. He's got 46 targets, 32 receptions. The Giants are 25th in DVOA versus the tight end. So that's easy, right? Then there's Kelsey. The only caveat to Kelsey is the Bills are getting healthier from a defense. And like I said, they actually are the only team that shut down Mark Andrews. So maybe that's a little bit scary. Dawson Knox is probably a decent leverage play, probably a lower owned play in that game, coming off of injury. And Zach Ertz, you can play. he has such a good red zone opportunities, but man, he's stiff as a board out there playing. But Zach Gentry is the cheap guy filling in for Freiermuth. He's tall, like ridiculously tall.
Like 6'7", right? I think he's a big boy.
He's a big boy. So, and you know, Pitt has always used the tight ends. It's a safety valve for them. And so I could see him 2,600 doesn't take much, right? And you know, maybe this is the Kittle week. You say that every week, right? And it never is, but you know,
more so on FanDuel, I think, just because of the way my lineups have worked. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, that's about it.
But Gentry is short of an inch. He's 6'8", according to the old Google machine. Your thoughts? You're talking about Pittsburgh, some run backs there in that Tampa Bay game. So I'm guessing you have some Gentry. If Hurst goes, he's been questionable, but especially if Higgins is out, maybe Hurst gets a couple extra passes thrown his way. And then the New Orleans games, I was also throwing into the conversation as far as the cheapies. Higbee is still a thing, kind of sort of someone on DK, but I don't love it. It's fine. And I feel the same way about Ertz. He's fine. I don't necessarily love it, but I'm most likely going all the way up or all the way down. What do you have, Bobby, as far as tight ends?
Yeah, so Higbee and Ertz, I'd probably just play with their quarterbacks. Andrews is like the guy that I think we want, right? Like he just seems like he's in a great spot. The ceiling's ridiculous at that position. He's pretty much a wide receiver. I think you can get to a lot of double tight ends this week. I think this is going to be the Kittle breakout week. I think I was trying to make it happen last week. I think this could be it. Cameron Brate and Cade Otton, I think those guys are interesting, along with Gentry from that Pittsburgh Tampa Bay game. They allow you to get a ton. And Dawson Knox, he's another guy though. I think it was Ricky D tweeted out his ownership's incorrect currently. So just be careful of that when you're rostering him, because he could get steamed up to 18 to 20%. And in higher stakes stuff, I would imagine he's going to be pretty chalky. Hayden Hurst, I think Hayden Hurst probably the cash game tight end at this point. I'm not sure. I'll have to hit up.
I think it's Andrews. I think you're getting the Andrews on DK. I think it's Andrews both places.
Okay.
Actually. I think
is that the secret lineup build?
The secret lineup build almost definitely is going to have Andrews on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know.
For sure.
Yeah.
So is my non-secret lineup.
The secret chat. We got to go. We got to step aside and get out of here. But before we do, I want to get your favorite game stack, favorite whatever. Something's going to break the slate. Something's going to win on the money. Kirkwood, set the bar. What do the people have to make some American dollars today?
We riding with Geno Smith, baby. And it feels great. And we're making sure we haven't Jamar Chase in our lineups.
There you go.
But stack that game, throw a little Jamar Chase in there, play my boy Ramondre, and let's go.
Bobby, see it and raise it.
What was it?
Your favorite stack?
I'm gonna go. I don't know. I probably lean Kyler Marquise.
Okay, I thought you were gonna go Tampa with a Pittsburgh bring back or something like that.
I like both those games. I don't know. I'm gonna have both those games stacked up. So, except on the Geno side, I think Geno's gonna be super chalky.
Well, I mean,
I'll go with
super chalky, 15%. What's Geno gonna be? 10%?
I don't know. He's hit it, the projections that he's hitting, and then what he allows you to get, and how successful he's been in the last 3 weeks. I think it's tough to quantify how he's going to end up in higher stake stuff. I don't know where he's going to be in terms of the milli. I can check.
I think Allen's going to get elevated. I think we have him at 17%. I think it'll be higher than that. And single entry.
I think Geno's going to be over 10%. Is that a bad take?
No, I don't think it's about right. What do you think, Kirkwood?
I don't know. I was too busy looking at NFLHDplay.com. And I was reading chat, but I think it'll be about 10%.
We got him at 11.
Maybe a little higher
on DK. But, yeah. I mean, the quarterbacks is going to be pretty condensed. We can say that, right? Allen, Geno, Mahomes, Brady, Lamar. That's basically going to be it. Maybe some Burrow as well, especially with that pregame narrative there. We got to step aside. We got to go. We ran over time. We got TJ in the bullpen coming in. He's going to tell you guys to hit the like button. Kindly hit it before he jumps in. And, of course, Squirrel Patrol as well. No reason to leave the stream. The stream continues. TJ and Squirrel Patrol will be in momentarily. That was Bobby Gomes. That was Kirkwood. I was Dean. We're stepping aside. We're out of here.
We're here from scoresandodds.com, back with your pints and picks for week 4, presented by BetMGM. Make sure you get over there and use promo code GRINDERS for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Now sit back, grab your favorite pint, while I give you my favorite picks for week 6. Another sweep for us last week. That's 4 in a row. Let's keep the ball rolling. First pick I'm going to give you here, we're rolling with the Cleveland Browns, -2.5 at home against New England. Now these were our 2 bets last week, Cleveland and New England, both coming in for us here. Now Cleveland, a team that I think could very easily be 5-0. We talked about it last week, and they have covered 6 of the last 8 at home against teams with losing records. Now New England, it's been a struggle on the road, only covered once over the last 6 road games. I still think the Browns are undervalued here. The Pats, a little bit inflated. We know they are a very public team, coming off a shutout last week, riding high here in the eyes of the public. I think Cleveland runs the ball here very effectively with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and covers this small spread as home favorites. All right, next pick for you, we're going to give you a home underdog. We're rolling with the Atlanta Falcons, +5.5. Now, Atlanta have been very good to us this season, 5-0 against the number so far this season, and have covered 7 out of their last 10, coming off of a loss. Tough test here against the San Francisco team, no doubt, but the Niners dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Atlanta, sounds like they're getting Kyle Pitts back, 77 yards in the last meeting with this Niners team. We got a big public versus sharps debate here. 60% of the bets right now coming in on the Niners, yet 85% of the money coming in on the Falcons. I am with the money here, grabbing the home team with the points. Atlanta, +5.5, one of my favorite bets of the week. All right, that'll do it for this week, folks. Thanks again. Remember, promo code GRINDERS over at BetMGM for a risk-free bet up to $1,000. For scoresandodds.com, for RotoGrinders.com, for BetMGM, I am Beer saying salute. Best of luck. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your bets this week.
What is up, RotoGrinders? It is time for some GPP Final Takes. We're going to help you win some tournaments, and we're going to tell you how we're going to be trying to do exactly that today. Right as we're beginning, we have some injury news coming in that we're going to get into. But before that, I am joined by one of the very best tournament players in the entire industry, a live final connoisseur, John Breslin, Squirrel Patrol. How you doing, pal?
Good, yeah. It's a good Sunday. It's weird. We're like, I could see you backstage. I'm like waving, but we're like muted and not talking to each other. But yeah, it's a good Sunday. What's the injury news? I've been looking for any updates.
T Higgins is officially active. Zay Jones. T Higgins is active.
Okay.
Zay Jones is active. Damian Harris inactive, Jonnu Smith active, Mac Jones inactive, Jacoby Myers active. So Ramondre Stevenson is locked in and good to go with Damian Harris out of the lineup. Zay Jones with Marvin Jones out becomes somewhat interesting for tournaments. Jamar Chase was a popular tournament play. Hayden Hurst was a popular tight end play on DraftKings. And I'm wondering if they get slightly less interesting now with T Higgins going to be in the lineup. Hurst is just confirmed active now again. Teron Armstead, the left tackle for the Dolphins, inactive. we got a lot to talk about this week. And before we talk about anything, we got 500 people watching. We're giving you 3.5 hours of free content before Sunday's big NFL main slate. Come on, let's get the likes up a little bit. I want to get 100 going. Before we talk about Higgins, before we talk about Ramondre Stevenson, tell me about how you're playing today on both sites. I don't need entry fees or anything like that, but how many lineups are you playing on both sites, and what's your kind of overarching strategy?
So generally, I'm going to take a little bit easy because I'm doing the show. But it's a weird week. I'm actually going to probably concentrate more on like 6 entries, kind of 5 entry max type of qualifiers and tournaments, just because there's like an elephant in the room with this Buffalo Kansas City game. You've got to make a decision right there. Like, are you going to go Josh Allen, run it back with some Kansas City guys, or are you going to maybe fade that game? My general take is I'm going to either stack that game heavily or fade it, and use like at most one player from the game. But yeah, there's some interesting alternatives. So looking forward to getting into it.
I actually kind of feel like everyone in that game outside of Patrick Mahomes is maybe not going quite as heavily owned as they should be. And so I agree with you. I'm kind of going fading one player or full game stacking, but I am doing a heck of a lot of full game stacking today. Sorry if you can hear my cat meowing in the background here. He's hiding behind my computer, so I can't even grab him. But I'm kind of going the opposite today. Now, this is my heaviest NFL week of the season so far. This is the most I've played. This is the most, and let me start by saying this directly correlates with my wife being out of town for the weekend. But this is without a doubt the most time I've put into building my lineups and thinking about my lineups. I've been very successful so far this year with Showdown. For NFL so far this year, I haven't been as successful as I was last year, and I was really trying to dive into why that is. And after each week this year, not so much for Showdown, but for the main slate, I've been able to identify specific mistakes that I made after my lineups had been built. Something I wanted to do, I forgot to do. Last week, it was I didn't have my top running backs in my full Josh Allen stack. I had my top running backs in my other lineups, but in my Josh Allen stack, which was fairly underowned with the receivers that I had with it, I didn't have my Leonard Fournette. I didn't have my Dalvin Cook, and so that lineup didn't perform near as well as it should have. So I've been really taking the time to think about not so much researching into players and matchups, but thinking about my lineups, thinking about how they correlate with each other, how the games are going to go. Can this lineup win a tournament? Yeah, maybe it has a stack with 1 or 2 players, but what does the rest of the lineup look like? If a game is 45-40 this week, will I have exposure to make that happen? And so I've been trying to build my lineups with just a lot of game stacks. I'm not trying to get away from some of this really what I feel is good chalk this week. I'm just trying to mix that good chalk with full on game stacks and different variations of them. And so I'm going pretty heavy this week. This is the most time I put into my lineup, so that probably means I'm not going to make any money. But I've been kind of through all 5 weeks of the season so far stuck at almost breaking even or doubling up. Nothing kind of in between there. And I kind of feel like, no, I want to be winning big or losing it all. Like, that's kind of how I want to be running my tournaments. I'll have my optimal in there. Like, obviously I don't want to lose it all. You know what I mean? But like, I'll have my optimal, my close to optimal lineup in there that is in some smaller field contests and then some double ups, some triple ups, and some quintuple ups. But in my tournament lineups, like I'm going for first. I'm not going for min cash. I'm going for first. And so I'm really trying to think through, well, in my Kyler Murray stack, which I love today, I'm going to put Devin Singletary in there. And that's going to be the only person in that game because I already have a ton of Josh Allen stacks. I got my Bills Chiefs stacks with all the receivers and the quarterbacks. So if I think a Murray team is going to win, and that's what this team is playing for, well, then I should probably have the running back in there because somebody is going to score in that game. So I'm looking forward to diving into this one, hoping we can help some people put the same thoughts into their lineups. And let's hit the like button. I want to get over 100. We got 500 people watching here. Let's talk about the breaking news we got right as we started. T. Higgins is active. This is somebody we were expecting to be inactive throughout the week. Jamar Chase was looking at a very strong tournament play. Hayden Hurst was looking at a strong play at tight end. How do you feel about these guys now? For me, I don't think I'm going to limit any of the Jamar Chase I have. I could see T. Higgins being a little decoy-esque, but I was getting to some Tyler Boyd, and I do think I want to mix it. I want to spread that out to a few other receivers now. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's a good take. I think like T. Higgins only played a handful of snaps last week, and like I think it's an ankle injury if I'm correct, which can actually linger. So yeah, like decoy could be the operative word. So yeah, I don't think there's any reason. Like Jamar Chase is always a good tournament play, assuming like you're kind of sprinkling him in. Then yeah, I think he's still a fine tournament play. I wouldn't necessarily go overboard with Tyler Boyd. I think you can actually play some T. Higgins in case he's not a decoy. But again, that's more of like 150 lineup set thing that you might want to do. I'm just not going to go overboard with this game because it's New Orleans, like Cincinnati. I think there's more appealing spots on the board. Like it's got a 42.5 total, I think. And like New Orleans is missing almost all of their receivers. So the game could play a little bit slower. Look like you could see like Alvin Kamara and like Taysom Hill, and then Joe Mixon just running the ball back and forth. So I'm not going to go crazy with that game. But yeah, it's important to note that T. Higgins is expected in.
And I won't even touch too long on this because I'll let Dre dive into this more on Crunch Time, which I know that he is on, because he does like a few players from this game, and we'll see how this impacts his thoughts. But I don't mind the skinny stack. Like I don't mind Alvin Kamara, Jamar Chase. I don't think I want to play T. Higgins because, like you said, it's an ankle injury. Even if he is fine, one cut and then he's not fine anymore. And so I think I'll be fading T. Higgins, but I love Jamar Chase, Alvin Kamara skinny stack. And then if you're running 150, even the Taysom Hill, Jamar Chase skinny stack, I think is somewhat interesting as well. But let's talk about the game stacks we're very interested in. I don't think this differs too much on DraftKings versus FanDuel. They're going to be getting position by position on the next show and really comparing those. But for us, we're going to kind of just talk about it as a whole, and except for the small places that they differ. And there's some things like Ramondre Stevenson, who I still think is a very good play on FanDuel, but he's just the best play on DraftKings. 76 or 7,500 versus 6K. That is just something that's very hard to fade. I wouldn't be looking to do it. I'm not playing on DraftKings, but if I was, I'd be looking to get as heavy on Ramondre Stevenson as I possibly could in my lineups. But let's talk about the game stacks. The elephant in the room, like you mentioned, it's Kansas City and it's Buffalo. Which side of the game are you heavier on? And if you are game stacking, who are the people you're wanting to make sure you get in?
So I think like the guys are pretty expensive. So I'm gonna go with the premier names. Like I think like Diggs. I guess on the Kansas City side, the affordable guys are Valdez-Scantling and Juju, but they're really uncertain. But again, if I'm going to be playing this game, I probably want to do like a full game stack, so you can fit in like Josh Allen, MVS, Juju, and Stephon Diggs into a team because we've got the value at the running backs to do it. It's an interesting week because it's kind of like a throwback week where like we used to get these fill-in running backs and they were 3,000 on DraftKings and everybody would just have to hammer them in, and they're no longer 3,000, but like Benjamin is 4,600 on DraftKings. That's going to be hard to get away from. Ramondre Stevenson, even though he's 6,000, like that's going to be really hard to get away from. So yeah, it's kind of a throwback week with these backup running backs filling in. And that allows you to get some of the more expensive pieces. I do think, obviously have a high amount of interest in Diggs and Travis Kelce, but then you can go, you can get away from Stephon Diggs because he doesn't always, like sometimes he's piling up receptions, but not necessarily finding the end zone. So then, at his price, then maybe you have to, you're going down to like Gabriel Davis, who obviously had a fantastic game last week.
I think Isaiah McKenzie is the best tournament receiving play on the entire slate. 5K on DraftKings, 6K on FanDuel. He's going severely under-owned on both sites. He is, I won't give an estimation. I'll pull up exactly what it is. I'll go over to my lineups quick. He is, in fact, my highest owned receiver. I'm playing 150 on FanDuel and then 3 main tournament lineups, 1 big tournament lineups, and then a few full game stacks and a couple other places as well. So I think I got a total of 201 upcoming entries on FanDuel. And Isaiah McKenzie is my highest owned receiver by a decent margin. They have, throughout the season, he's had some decent games, some big games and some decent games. His biggest game was with Gabe Davis out. But the biggest thing with Isaiah McKenzie is he sees 5 or 6 targets a game, and it's on like a 50% snap share. That's because Jake Kumaro gets snaps. It's because Jamison Crowder splits 50% in the slot with Isaiah McKenzie. Now, last week, there was no Jamison Crowder and there was no Isaiah McKenzie because he had a concussion, and Khalil Shakir was in the slot full time that game. And they ran some different formations where they just didn't have a slot receiver. Now we have still no Crowder, still no Kumaro, but Isaiah McKenzie is back in there. He's always been somebody that even if he doesn't play a lot, they run specific routes for him, specific plays for him, often in the red zone. And I don't really understand why nobody's playing him in the highest total game on the highest total team with the best quarterback on the slate. Like, to me, that just feels like the easiest thing ever. So I do like Valdez Scantling as well. I do like Gabe Davis. I do like Travis Kelce, and I do like Stephon Diggs. But my priority is actually going to be Isaiah McKenzie among this crew of players. And kind of like I mentioned, I love the game stack. I like to what I like to do today is I want to play these chalky running backs. There are some tournament running backs I like as well that aren't picking up as much ownership that I'll touch on, but I like these chalky backs. Like I want to play Darrell Henderson. I want to play, Benjamin. I want to play Kenneth Walker. I want to play Ramondre Stevenson. I even want to play Deion Jackson, who maybe isn't going to be all that chalky as much as I thought he would be. But we'll see. And so because of that, what I want to do with my receivers today is I'm just going to play 3 of them with my quarterback. Like, I'm going to play the running backs that I like, and I'm going to mix and match them in my game stacks. And I'm going to play Travis Kelce with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Isaiah McKenzie. Or I'll mix Dawson Knox in there at 3,400 on DraftKings. And so he hasn't done great yet, but he should have more opportunity this week. He's been injured kind of all year. He's starting to get a little bit healthier again. He gets the targets. He just hasn't been getting the touchdowns. And so Dawson Knox is somebody that I could see having a big game at low ownership. So I'm looking to play some top end chalky, good chalk in my opinion, running backs, and I'm full game stacking with them. And Isaiah McKenzie is my favorite way on the slate to get a little bit different with the top game stack of the week.
Yeah, so I think it's noteworthy because this game, like this Bills offense, the Bills have by far the highest implied point total on the slate, and they have had some injuries with their receivers, like with their pass catchers recently. So like Dawson Knox, I think, was out last week. Isaiah McKenzie was out. Khalil Shakir filled in, and Gabriel Davis filled in. Davis is always playing. Gabriel Davis had the big game. And Shakir had a pretty big game as well. But I really like the Dawson Knox call. It's like tight end's always a tough position to fill. If Mark Andrews doesn't have a big game, if Travis Kelce doesn't have a big game for their salaries, then like Dawson Knox, if he catches like 2 touchdowns, then he's probably in the optimal lineup. And so
that's why I was pissed last week. And these are the mistakes I'm trying not to make today. And I've built, one of the ways I fixed it is just I've built more lineups to kind of differentiate this. But last week I had Josh Allen with Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis, and Stephon Diggs. I did the full stack. The team looked great, but my running backs were Alvin Kamara. I got too cute trying to pair James Robinson with the Jacksonville defense. And I should have just played Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook like I wanted to throughout all of my lineups, as opposed to trying to get sneaky. And so I'm looking to fix those errors today. And I think it's going to be a profitable one. I'm hoping it's going to be a profitable one. Hit the like button. Get us up to at least 100 here. We got 600 people watching. Realistically, we should be at 300. It's on YouTube. All you got to do is slide your finger over, hit the like button. If you're watching on your phone, all you got to do is just minimize that chat for 1 second, hit the like button, and then you can pop the chat back up. It helps us ever so much combat the YouTube algorithm. It won't show up on people's feeds for people to watch. RotoGrinders won't make the money. We'll have to pop this back up on premium, and you'll got to pay a lot of money for it. And so that's really the only way we can keep this show free, is if we hit the like button. So Squirrel, talk to me about your favorite game stacks outside of this chalky one today.
Yeah, so I've got one that's pretty off the board, but it's almost surprising that it's off the board. I like Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley as a game stack. Like you can put in Lamar, Saquon, Mark Andrews, and then you're just filling in with like the cheaper pieces around it. But like Saquon and Lamar Jackson probably make up like the biggest chunk of their team's offense of any two players. So why not like pair them against each other? They're in the same game. Like if Lamar Jackson's running in a couple of touchdowns, like that's something that could break the slate and beat the Josh Allen teams, right? So like the Kansas City Buffalo game can still go berserk, but if Lamar Jackson's rushing prop is 60.5 yards, that's that's like an extra 150 yards passing. So yeah, like I think Lamar Jackson can break the slate without that game necessarily going berserk. But if he is rushing in a couple of touchdowns, or he gets an 80-yard run again, then suddenly the Giants are probably passing the ball a little bit more often. Saquon's getting more receptions. So yeah, I like the game stack. I like the idea. Lamar Jackson piling up the rushing yards, maybe throws a touchdown to Mark Andrews, and then you can run it back with Saquon Barkley. So that's a game stack that's a little bit off the board, but it's probably my favorite pairing. And I think the early games are going to go overlooked, because I think the Buffalo Kansas City game really stands out. Then people are going to say, well, if I want to get sneaky, I'm going to pivot off that game. And the Arizona Seattle game is actually pretty well priced. Like it's actually, you get more value pieces in that Arizona Seattle game. So that game's going to probably get almost as much ownership as the Buffalo Kansas City game. So I like the idea of trying to go completely different. You can still maybe put in one piece from those games, or I don't want to fade Benjamin at all. Like he's a pass catching running back. He's going to be cheap. He's going to get the majority of the work. Like barring an injury, then I think he's going to hit value. But it creates an interesting situation at running back, because Benjamin's going to be really popular, or Ramondre Stevenson's going to be really popular. So then people are either going to have to play 3 running backs, or all the other running backs are going to get very small ownership. So my favorite stack away from the Buffalo, Kansas City, and Arizona, Seattle games is definitely Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley. It's strange to stack a quarterback with the opposing running back as your primary stack.
Today is a day that we're going to see some really, really high scores up top, the GPP tournaments. What are your kind of thought process on stacking with the QBs you use today? My mindset is Lamar Jackson is the only quarterback on this entire slate that I will play without a bare minimum of 2, but probably receive 3 of their receivers.
Yeah, I think so. And they're like really with Lamar Jackson, you're just hoping he rushes a touchdown. So he doesn't necessarily need to have multiple receivers in order to hit his upside. And like outside of Mark Andrews, I don't know if there's any receivers I'm really excited about. Maybe like Duvernay, But yeah, I think you could see, especially Andrews is like such a red zone presence that you could see 2 touchdowns from Lamar Jackson going to Mark Andrews, and there's nobody else from the Baltimore side that you want. Everybody else, like you definitely want to be stacking at least 2 receivers. I guess maybe if there's one exception, maybe like Matthew Stafford with Cooper Kupp, because Kupp is such an outlier. But I'd still like Tyler Higbee is still appealing in that matchup. So yeah, it's probably at least 2.
But yeah, and that's the thing is I want to go with Higbee because the way I kind of look at it is if Matthew Stafford throws 3 touchdowns to Cooper Kupp will be optimal, but Matthew Stafford's not going to be optimal. He'll need 5 touchdowns to get there. And so maybe it's 2 to Higbee. Maybe it's a random final breakout game from Allen Robinson. That's something I did in one of my 150 lineups is include Allen Robinson in his stack there. So yeah, I'm with you there. I like that idea a lot. What about specifically in a Lamar Jackson stack, the Baltimore passing game? Because we did get Wayndale Robinson ruled in, and somebody I was willing to take a few shots on was Darius Slayton because he came out of nowhere and got a ton of targets last week. And he's somebody that in past years, Daniel Jones has shown to like to throw the ball to. Slayton, I'm not sure if I want to get to now with Wayndale Robinson in there. If you're doing a bigger game stack, you're not just playing Lamar and Saquon. You're also playing Mark Andrews and you're also playing Devin Duvernay. Is there a pass catcher for the Giants, whether it's Bellinger, Robinson, Slayton, anybody else like that you're wanting to fit into a lineup?
It's probably Robinson because we haven't seen him. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty there. I think he's played limited snaps in the first game and then got injured. But with no other receivers there for the Giants, like he might be the guy. Like he might become the guy. He's a rookie, highly drafted. So I think he's 4,900 on FanDuel. Like it's very rare on FanDuel that you see a receiver that's going to play that's like sub 5,000. So I actually like Wandale Robinson just because there's so much uncertainty. He's highly drafted, and he's stepping into a situation where like Tony's out. Sterling Shepard got injured. Like it's actually a different situation than even week 1 when he was playing the limited snaps. So that's like probably the Giants pass catcher I'm most interested in, and I'm presuming he's going to have like sub 5% ownership. But like you actually saw,
bet it's going to be sub 2%.
Was it?
Bet it's going to be sub 2%.
Yeah. Yeah, and what you saw last year with like Kadarius Toney, I think his first game, he was injured the first part of the season, and then his first game, he stepped right in and had a bunch of targets, a bunch of receptions. You could see a repeat of that with Robinson, and it's obviously it's like a price considered thing, but I get 4,900 on FanDuel. If he gets a touchdown, that's probably enough.
Yeah, 100%. I think probably what I have only a few Darius Slayton lineups in full game stacks, but I think kind of what I might do right now is maybe leave one of them, but just do the old quick player replace Slayton to Robinson and then upgrade in somewhere else in those lineups. And then the other thing I'm going to have to do after this show before lock that I feel like others may as well is just adjust the Cincinnati news, T. Higgins. And maybe that doesn't even mean changing your lineups, but just thinking about them. If you think he's going to be a decoy, then you'll still like Jamar Chase. If you think he's 100%, you can play him. For me personally, I think it means not changing any Jamar Chase, but just getting to less Tyler Boyd. Before we talk about prioritizing some of these chalkier running backs, prioritizing some of our other favorite tournament plays, talk to me about what some of your favorite bets are on this slate, because we've got you covered at Scores and Odds. Your number one place for all things sports betting, scoresandodds.com. Get ready for NFL season and arm yourself with the best tools and analysis. Check out the new Parlay IQ, free for everyone currently. Use it to build optimal same game parlays based on thousands of games worth of simulated data. What, are you making any bets, or is it just a DFS week for you?
I'm just doing DFS. Like I'll take a look at my DraftKings account, in my FanDuel account after the sportsbook accounts, see what boosts are out there. Do I have any odds increases or whatever the case is, I'm probably going to stick to DFS just because of the short window with doing the show and then trying to get my lineups in. But I'll take a look at some live bets as well. There's nothing that necessarily sticks out to me pre-game. I would just make sure you're line shop and getting the best number for whatever you do like.
Sounds good. I like it. And so we had a question about asking a favorite prize picks pick on the board. I'm just trying to, I just opened it up right now. I'm peeking over there on prize picks right now. So I'll see if there's anything that stands out to me. And if there is, I'll drop it in the chat. Make sure you hit the like button for us. We got over 600 people watching now. What's up, Squirrel?
Yeah, just one thing that does stick out a little bit is I like the idea of maybe Pittsburgh's passing offense being a little bit better than the prop market would suggest. It's one of those situations where there's a lot of uncertainty. Like Pickett was making his first start last week, and like the Buffalo defense is terrible for a quarterback. Is a young quarterback making his first NFL start. Now he's getting his second NFL start, another full week to prepare. Tampa Bay defense is no cakewalk either, but I think you could see maybe like the George Pickens over yards or something like that. I think it's like 45. And then just the Pittsburgh passing offense in general, it's not necessarily a DFS play because I don't think they're going to go like berserk enough to win a tournament, but I think that it's probably better than expected.
Yeah, most of my Pittsburgh exposure today is full game stacks where I'm running Brate, Evans, Godwin, Brady, and then either Deontay Johnson or George Pickens. My favorite props, I think, over on Prize Picks related to those Pittsburgh ones is pick any or even all of their over just receptions. Maybe not yards, but receptions. Deontay Johnson is an absolute target hog, and he's projected for 5 receptions. George Pickens is 4. Zach Gentry is 3. I like all of those. I think they're all pretty interesting. So I think that is a good thing. And then you can maybe stack it up your Prize Picks parlay with some Tampa Bay Buccaneers overs on there as well. Let's prioritize these chalky running backs because we have 4 today that are kind of taking the cake that people are going to want to play, and you can only play 3 of them. So, and that's Eno Benjamin, Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, and Darrell Henderson. Who is your first priority, and who is the one you're most willing to leave out of a lineup?
So I think my first priority is going to be Benjamin, but it's really close. I think it's a top 2. I think it's Benjamin and Stevenson. Those are the 2 I really like. I think Darrell Henderson falls a little bit behind just because I don't know how much the other Rams running backs are going to mix in. Like, Benjamin and Stevenson, because of injuries, they're the only guys. That's it. So I think that they're going to be a huge part of the offense. And I think like Benjamin in particular catches a lot of passes. Stevenson is like going to make up a huge part of that New England offense. Like Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson are an incredible 1-2 punch, but now it's just a 1 punch. Like now it's just Stevenson. So those are my top 2 by far. And then it's probably the order, the projected ownership you've got there right there. Like I'm not going to try to fight that. Kenneth Walker is probably 3rd. I'm just a little bit concerned that he's less of a pass catcher than Benjamin. And Benjamin's cheaper. So I'm going to go with Benjamin in that situation. Darrell Henderson, I'm a little bit worried that they've got other running backs that might mix in. Actually, and that's a little bit of a concern with Kenneth Walker as well, because I think DJ Dallas could be mixing in, take a little bit away, and he's the more veteran back with Walker being a rookie. That's the thing. Like Benjamin has actually been around Arizona for a little bit, so it's not like some rookies stepping in. It's just that James Conner and every other running back they have is injured. So I think they have more trust in Benjamin. So him and Ramondre are my top 2, then Kenneth Walker among the chalkier backs, and then after that, Darrell Henderson.
And so this is kind of perfect timing. We got a report that running back Ronnie Rivers is expected to get some looks in quotations with Darrell Henderson. So I almost kind of feel like people will read that as negatively. To me, I kind of read that as I think Henderson's going to get 70 to 80% of the snaps, and this some looks might account to about 20 to 30% of the snaps. So I do like Darrell Henderson quite a bit. I'm playing more heavily on FanDuel today, so I'll talk about kind of where I'm prioritizing those guys there, because the pricing is quite a bit different on these running backs. Benjamin, I think, is still my priority number one. Kenneth Walker, I think, is honestly, Walker, Benjamin, and Henderson are my three priorities there. Ramondre Stevenson is the one I'm looking to leave off. I don't want to. I'm still getting him in 30% of my lineups in 150. But in my big single entry stuff, Ramondre Stevenson is the one I'm looking to leave off because he's 7,500 there. Whereas, Benjamin's 63, Kenneth Walker's 65, Darrell Henderson's 57. And so those are the three I'm getting to the most. I have over 50% of all three of those running backs this week. I agree with everything you said about, Benjamin. Same with Henderson. I don't agree as much about Kenneth Walker. I think they're looking to unleash Kenneth Walker this week. He started the year hurt. He's been getting more and more touches throughout the year. There were reports early on in preseason and training camp that he was somebody that they thought maybe was going to be overtaking Penny as the starter by the end of the year anyways. And so Kenneth Walker, I think, is going to get unleashed this week with 20 plus carries, or at least 20 plus touches. And I like him quite a bit. We're going to get to kind of who your favorite just tournament low owned plays are in general. But before that, there's a few questions I want to touch on because they're relevant to what we're talking about. What do you think about Singletary? He's somebody that I like getting to this week a lot in either Patrick Mahomes lineups or non-Josh Allen lineups. Like, just if I fade the game outside of Devin Singletary. How about you?
Yeah, I think he's a better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. I was getting to him a lot more on FanDuel. I like the idea of playing Singletary in lineups where you're like fading that game other than Singletary. And he's like probably the biggest threat to Josh Allen. Although he does catch some passes, so that there's possibilities he'll get Josh Allen to Devin Singletary touchdown pass. But still, like if let's say Devin Singletary is running in 2 touchdowns on the ground, that's suddenly a way where that Buffalo Kansas City game is still going, it's still scoring a lot, but like suddenly the pieces are way different than we were expecting, right? So you could see like a situation where Singletary is getting 2 touchdowns, Dawson Knox is catching a touchdown, and then suddenly like your Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen stacks don't look so good. So yeah, I love the idea of using Singletary, particularly on FanDuel, particularly in stacks that are not of the Buffalo Kansas City game.
Yes, 100%. That's the exact same way I'm going about it. And Singletary, I think, is my 6th highest owned back behind the 4 we talked about. And then as well as Deion Jackson and then it's Stevenson after that. Another one I like quite a bit for tournaments is Breece Hall. He's been getting more work throughout the week. He's somebody that I'm looking to get to. But overall, I'm not really paying up that much at running back today. In general, favorite tournament plays. Who you liking?
I think it's that Lamar Jackson, like Saquon Barkley pairing. That's my favorite tournament option, just because I think it's way off the board of what people are going to be looking at. I really like the Breece Hall call, particularly on DraftKings, just because he's another guy that's catching a lot of passes. Like if there's somebody that's going to, in that price range, really exceed all the chalkier running backs, I could see it being Breece Hall. Like what if he gets 7-8 receptions, and then suddenly that's a point per reception on DraftKings. Like we've seen him have like an 11 target game already, a 9 target game already. So it's definitely on the board, and he's getting more play as the season goes on, taking more work from Michael Carter. He also put up 100. He put up 100 receiving yards last week and 97 rushing yards. It's pretty rare to see the dual 3-point bonus on DraftKings. So I think he's definitely a good DraftKings play.
I like it. Now, we had a question in chat. What do you think about this Minnesota and Miami game, because that's something we have not talked about whatsoever. I had a lot of interest in the Minnesota defense and Dalvin Cook, but then Tua got ruled in, and now I'm not so sure about it. I currently
Oh no, I don't think Tua's in.
did I miss that wrong? I thought he was going to be back.
He's expected back next week, so it's still Skylar Thompson this week. But that there's some uncertainty there because we don't really know. I mean, Thompson played all last week, but he wasn't terrible. I'm probably gonna have like limited exposure to the Miami side though. But I do like the idea.
I'm very happy about you alerting me to this because I missed that completely, and now I'm gonna get a little bit of Minnesota defense in there now as well. Sorry, continue.
Sure. Well, I love Justin Jefferson like as a tournament pivot. I don't think he's going to see very high ownership. If I'm like when I'm thinking about tournament plays, I'm looking for guys who can absolutely break this slate. Like I'm not necessarily looking for like price considered value pieces. Like I'm looking for somebody like a wide receiver that can put up 40 points, where it's like Stephon Diggs puts up 20. But then, like if Justin Jefferson is putting up 40, then you need Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's a guy, he's put up like 33 DraftKings points in his last 2 games. I guess that's incredible. So like that's a piece right there. And they talked about wanting to get him, more work this year. Like Adam Thielen seems like he's taking a step back. So like Justin Jefferson's like the centerpiece of that offense. So like that's who I'm primarily interested in from the Miami Minnesota game. Other than that, like maybe Raheem Mostert as like a running back that people aren't going to be playing just because he was questionable, I think, coming into the game. But he's going to be playing. I think he's been taking more work from Chase Edmonds. So, yeah, I mean, I think you can do like Raheem Mostert and Justin Jefferson from that game. And then, yeah, of course, like the Minnesota defense.
Justin Jefferson is going to be my priority. In that game. I'm getting to a lot of the expensive receivers today because I'm not getting to a lot of the expensive running backs. How specifically are you prioritizing today Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, and Justin Jefferson?
So I think the highest owned is definitely going to be Diggs. I'm probably going to be at the field or just a little bit under. I'm going to aim to be way over the field on like maybe double the field on Justin Jefferson. So like if Diggs is like 20 to 25%, I'm probably going to try to be at like 15. Just because I think there's other ways that game can go. Whereas like, yeah, Justin Jefferson, like if he's at 10%, I'm going to try to be at 20. Because I think that's a good tournament like swap right there that you can make, like spend up a little bit more for Jefferson instead of Diggs. Cooper Kupp is always appealing. It's just like he's so expensive, like 9,700 on DraftKings now. Like he has to do so much to pay off that salary. And 9,400 on FanDuel, but on FanDuel he's not getting the full point per reception. And like this isn't the best matchup against Carolina. Like I don't know how much they're gonna have to keep passing the ball with like PJ Walker starting for Carolina. So like this might be the game I'm like, or the week that I'm least high on Cooper Kupp, just because like Carolina or the Rams might be able to get away with just running Darrell Henderson if they get a lead, and just rely on the defense and try to see if PJ Walker can catch up. And so like I'm not necessarily seeing Cooper Kupp piling up a bunch of touchdowns or receptions.
So on DraftKings, I agree 100%. On FanDuel, where the difference in price is only 500 between Diggs, Jefferson, and Kupp, for me, I think it goes Diggs 1, Kupp 2, Jefferson 3. Having said that, I'm trying to get over the field on all 3. I do have more Kupp, and the reason I have more Kupp in tournaments is because I'm getting a ton of Diggs in my Josh Allen in my Josh Allen teams. I'm getting a ton of Diggs in my Patrick Mahomes teams, but outside of that, I'm getting a lot of Cooper Kupp because I think he's going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit this week. I think basically everybody's going to have that mindset. And I could see like the Rams offense has really been bad this year. And it's because like Matthew Stafford has struggled. Their offensive line hasn't been quite as good. And Matthew Stafford has struggled. And so he leans on Cooper Kupp. And I could still see this game being the type of thing where Darrell Henderson has 130 yards on the ground, but maybe could struggle to get in the end zone. And on third down, they end up throwing a Cooper Kupp, and he has 7 receptions on 10 targets, but 2 or 3 of them are touchdowns. And so Cooper Kupp, somebody I'm getting to quite a bit today. What about the cheap end of things, value-wise? Who are you looking to get to save some salary in tournaments that maybe some other people aren't getting to, regardless of the position? Do you think it's at all reasonable to take shots in tournaments on guys like Keontae Ingram, Benjamin's backup, Ronnie Rivers, Darrell Henderson's backup? Or are you just sticking with these chalkier guys at running back and looking to differentiate a receiver?
I think I'm going to differentiate at receiver. I'm not going to try to play some guys like guys that are coming into the season, or like guys that were 2 weeks ago. They're the 4th string running back. I'm gonna skip them. Maybe they get a couple receptions and fall into the end zone. That's just not I'm looking like Rondale Moore, 4,200 on DraftKings. That's enough value for me. He's probably going to get some receptions. So I think you can use him as a value piece. Some of the wide receivers in New Orleans, like Tre'Quan Smith, you can use Zay Jones. Marvin Jones is out. So Zay Jones is only 4,200. Romeo Doubs with Green Bay, he's only 4,800 on DraftKings. I think I'm going to differentiate. I'm going to be getting my value pieces at receiver.
Yeah, I'm with you there as well. We got some other questions as well about just other teams that some people I think are maybe interested in stacking, wondering if we are too. What about a Green Bay stack? What about a Minnesota stack with not just Jefferson, but some Irv Smith, some Adam Thielen? What do you think about these types of things as well? Sure.
I think you can. I particularly like the Green Bay stack because their implied point total is actually pretty high. It's going a little bit overlooked, but Green Bay, 7-point favorite. They're going to put up some points against the Jets. So I think you can go there. I think you can go with the running backs. They're probably going to score at least 3 touchdowns. So you got to think about where those touchdowns are going to come from. It's just difficult with Green Bay because they can spread it out a little bit. But I like Romeo. I like Aaron Jones in Green Bay. Minnesota, I'm going to stick more with Justin Jefferson because I think that's becoming more of a concentrated offense. So I'm not going to look to go to the peripheral Minnesota pass catchers. I think it's going to be the Justin Jeffersons that show.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Those are kind of teams that I don't think Kirk Cousins will be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. I don't think they score 5 or 6 touchdowns. I think Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, I think they could. And I think Kyler Murray could. Maybe even Geno Smith. But I'm telling you, the only places I'm playing Geno Smith is with 3 receivers and running it back with a couple Cardinals players. But having said that, I think that's I can't see myself full stacking those teams today. There are a couple teams I'm doing a couple Joe Burrow, a couple Matt Stafford, just in case things go crazy. I do even, because I'm almost completely fading the 49ers today, and I'm over I'm not getting to very much Deebo Samuel. I wanted to get to more Kittle, and I'm not getting to as much as I hoped. I'm not getting to much Jeff Wilson Jr. I'm getting to a lot of Falcons defense because they're minimum price on FanDuel. And so because of that, I'm almost getting to none of them. I do have a couple Jimmy G stacks as well because I know exactly who I can pair him with. It's Ayuk, it's Deebo Samuel, and it's George Kittle. So maybe those guys break some of those 10-yard passes for really long touchdowns because they are good playmakers. So I do have that, but other than that, there's not too many teams I'm looking to run full stack today. Someone's asking about a jet stack. What do you think about a jet stack with Wilson and Breece Hall? That's probably not going to be for me today. What about you?
I like Breece Hall. I mean, he's definitely a DraftKings play because that point per reception is a lot when a running back can put up 100 yards receiving. Yeah, I'm not in love with not in love with the Jet stack. I could see maybe a mini stack with like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, but like then you've got to be thinking like, is Green Bay really giving up that many yards and touchdowns to the Jets? Probably not. So I mean, if you're playing a Green Bay guy, I don't mind running it back with Breece Hall, or maybe like Tanyan and. If like tight end could end up being somewhat random this week. So like, Tanyan could get 2 touchdowns. Like, why not? And then if you want to run that back with Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson, I think that's reasonable. I'm probably not going to do like a much larger game stack of that game. Unless like maybe one out of 100.
Yeah, like my biggest exposure to that game, it's Breece Hall, it's Aaron Jones, it's a little bit of AJ Dillon on FanDuel, and it's Romeo Doubs in a few lineups as well. Tight end is going to get a little bit random. You said I'm trying to look at the chat, and all of these spam accounts are just going wild today, and so it's kind of tough to keep a focus on it. But you mentioned getting a little bit random at tight end. For me, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews are my 2 highest owned. It's Andrews first, it's Kelce second, and then I'm spreading it out quite a bit. I'm getting a little random. What are your favorite ways to do that with on DraftKings? And then I'll talk about some of my favorites on FanDuel.
Probably the guy that we didn't mention at tight end is I like Zach Ertz, because I think there's going to be so many people who are playing that Arizona-Seattle game that are going to be playing Benjamin, and then probably either like Rondale Moore or Marquise Brown. But like Zach Ertz fits the tight end position. He's a good target for Kyler Murray. High scoring game. So it's a little way of not getting away from one of the higher scoring games, but just getting a little bit different with it. And along that same vein, like Dawson Knox, I think he's going to go overlooked because he's been injured. And that's everybody's like favorite game to play, but they're going to be playing like Stephon Diggs. They're going to be playing on Travis Kelce. And we know that like Dawson Knox is a red zone target for Josh Allen. So that's probably my 2 favorite tight ends that we didn't mention there.
Yeah, I like that. On FanDuel today, like George Kittle, 5,700. I do like him there. Somebody like Higbee, I think I'd rather get to him on DraftKings where he's a little bit cheaper. On FanDuel, I'm not looking to get to him there. Like you see like the prices, Mark Andrews, 7K, Travis Kelce, 7.8K. And then all these other guys are in the 4s and the 3Ks. But on FanDuel, Mark Andrews, 7.8, Travis Kelce, 7.3. Or sorry, 8.3, not that much more, especially for Travis Kelce. But then the Higbees and the Ertzes, they're in the 6Ks. George Kittle and Knox, they're in the 5Ks. They're not 3K, 4K. And so that salary is just not quite worth as much. So I'd rather just pay up for Andrews and Kelce. So that's definitely my priorities. And if I'm not doing them, I am paying all the way down. It's Zach Gentry. 4,600 for Pittsburgh with no Pat Freiermuth. It's Cameron Brate back in the lineup in that exact same game. And then if I am playing a little bit of Geno Smith lineups, that's when I'll mix in a little bit of Noah Fant or Will Dissly in there as well. But I'm definitely prioritizing Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews, and then mixing in the cheapies from Denver, Pittsburgh, and then game stacking the guys from Buffalo, like Dawson Knox, Zach Ertz, and the Seattle guys.
Yeah, I think Gentry is actually a really good call because I think he's 2,600 on DraftKings. So anytime somebody's like less than 3,000, that's a big deal. So in a particularly good pair with like Tom Brady. So you pair Brady with a couple of the Tampa Bay receivers. And then Gentry is a way to really save some money, and then you're able to afford much more expensive pieces from the other games.
Yeah, I like it. Do you have any interest in Evan Ingram?
That's actually he's not on my radar, but with Marvin Jones out, that's actually not a terrible call.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. The Marvin Jones news being out. Weirdly enough, like I take into consideration knowing who I want to stack with more than their matchup, more than anything like else. And not that we're afraid of the Colts right now anyways, but the fact that Marvin Jones was out, and it allowed me to know if I want to play a Trevor Lawrence team, I can play him with Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram all in one spot. That made me like him quite a bit. That's an important game for us to, I think, talk about. We haven't touched on it very much because there's a ton of injuries. Jonathan Taylor's out. Nyheim Hines is out. We got Deion Jackson starting. We got Phillip Lindsay in there as well for the Colts. On the other side of this game, we have a great matchup for Christian Kirk. We still have a lot of murkiness in their running back situation, but we also got Marvin Jones out opening the door more for Evan Ingram and Zay Jones, who is returning from injury. What's your thought process here for that game?
So it's not a game that I'm going to be going nuts with just because I think the point total is 41. It could go over because it's a tight spread, but it's probably not a game I'm going to be getting a lot to. I do like Deion Jackson, particularly on FanDuel. He's 5,600. It's like that's significantly cheaper than like Benjamin. He's 6,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, it's reverse. So I'm not getting a ton of Deion Jackson on DraftKings because I think he's what is he? Yeah, he's 5,200. So like that's 600 more than Benjamin. So I like Deion Jackson from that game on FanDuel. Other than that, like I'm probably not going to be getting a whole lot. Maybe some Christian Kirk at receiver because I think that with Marvin Jones out, like the primary beneficiary is probably Christian Kirk. And then I'll use Zay Jones as a value piece as well.
Yeah, that's not one that I'm too often looking a full stack other than a couple of Trevor Lawrence lineups, but I really like Deion Jackson on a FanDuel, and I am going to get a little bit of Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman as well. Pierce, I think, is a solid play on DK. But like it's Amp is saying in chat right now, it's a divisional game. It's a close spread. I think this one has a little bit of potential for some guys to go off, but also Jacksonville defense is one of my most owned defenses of the week too. So I think they're probably going to sack Matt Ryan 5 times, pick him off 2 or 3. And so Jacksonville's defense, I'm getting to a lot when I don't have Deion Jackson on that team.
Yeah. I think it's actually the first game that's the second divisional game of the year for any matchup. Like these teams already played each other in week 2. So it's the first game that's a divisional matchup, the second game, for what it's worth.
There it is. So adjustments may be going to be made. Hit the like button for us on our way out of here. We got the Crunch Time crew coming in. We got Dre. We got Kristi. We got me pulling up the RotoGrinders media schedule so I can see who the last person on the show is. If we want this stuff to keep being free for you, so for that to happen, we got to hit the like button and so that we can combat the YouTube algorithm and keep getting us on here. We got TheLuuch hosting the show with Andre and Kristi. Give us a hot take to get out of here, and we are going to sign off. Let us know how you're going to win a tournament today over on DraftKings, and I'm going to tell the people how I'm going to do it on FanDuel.
I think the hot take is maybe I'm going to just be underweight the Kansas City Buffalo game. Like it's not a comfortable thing to do, but there's just the game going nuts. Like everyone's expecting a repeat of the AFC Championship game. I don't expect a repeat of that. Like what if the teams are adjusting for the way that game went by deciding to slow things down a little bit? And I think there's some other spots, even away from the Seattle Arizona game, that you can go to. I'm not going to be going down to like the lowest scoring games, like the lowest projected point total games on the slate. But yeah, you can get away from that game and still find some interesting spots.
I like it. For me, I'm going overweight on that game. I'm going overweight on Josh Allen and full stacking him with Isaiah McKenzie. Allen with 3 Buffalo Bills receivers on the same team. That's how I'm hoping to do it today. And on the lineups, I'm not doing that. I very carefully thought them out. I plugged in some Singletary. I full stacked other teams. Let's make way for the Crunch Time crew. Hit the like button on your way out. Thank you so much for joining us today. And on behalf of myself, TJ Zwarych, on behalf of John, Squirrel Patrol, we will see you later. Good luck today. Peace.
What is going on, grinders? It's Chief, it's Monkey Knife Fight, and it's the main slate of Sunday football, folks. Get over the Monkey Knife Fight. They've got Monkey Knife Fight 2.0. It's streamlined, it's sleek. Hop in there, make a few dollars, build that bankroll. Also, get in the prop shop, people. That's also free. The prop shop is free. We're helping people make money for free. All right, F-R-E-E, free. Let's go. Let's talk about Sunday football. We're going to one of the most biggest games of the week. I think it's going to be explosive. No defense, by the way. It's Seattle. It's Arizona. They better not let us down. Is it more? Is it less? Let's find out. So this was an easy one this week, man, in terms of looking for pairs on Monkey Knife Fight. We've got DK Metcalf, we got Rondale Moore. DK Metcalf sitting at 70.5 receiving yards. This man is a big play machine. He can pick this up in 2 plays. I'm going to give him 4 plays, 4 catches to get over 70.5 yards. I think one of these he's going to take it to the house yet again. I love the connection with Geno Smith. On the other side, we've got Rondale Moore at 48.5. He's going to pick this up in a slightly different way. I'm hoping we get one of these touch pass jet sweeps early and he can just make a house call of his own. Rondale Moore, going to get it on volume at 48.5. Really like this combo. Him and DK taking both overs. Both of these teams should be pushing the ball down the field. Can you tell I'm excited, folks? Yes, I am very excited about this combo period of DK Metcalf, Rondale Moore. Let's take the overs. Let's ride this thing to the money. All right, folks, we've been talking Monkey Knife Fight for the Sunday main slate. I'll see you back here Monday for Monkey Knife Fight, Monday Night Football.
Good afternoon, everybody. Another week of NFL football action. You're tuned into RotoGrinders NFL Crunch Time presented by FanDuel. I'm Justin Carlucci here. I'm excited for this week. Bye weeks are now into play, so we got a little bit shorter of a main slate. Andre Alford, my question to you is why the hell is the Bills-Chiefs game not in primetime tonight, man?
Because I don't know. Honestly, I think it's a good game tonight. Why is it not in prime time though? Who the Cowboys and Eagles? That's a better game. That's a better game. I think that's going to be a really climactic game. Let's put it that way.
It's understandable. I'm just the northeastern PA guy who's not an Eagles fan, so I have to deal with all the hype train's out of control. Hey, Kristi, good to see you again. You wrote a props article for RotoGrinders this week, and there's someone in that Bills game you really like to hit his number today.
Yeah, absolutely. Gabe Davis, one of my favorite plays in the game this week. So, yeah, I can't wait for this game. I've been looking forward to it after the playoff run earlier this year. So it's going to be a great one.
Can't wait. Drop your questions in our Discord and in the YouTube chat, and we will get to them when we can towards the end of the show. Check out Scores and Odds. Parlay IQ is still free. It'll change the way you bet with same-game parlays. Shows you a ton of calculations and correlations based on thousands of game simulations. Our NFL team is just crushing it this year. I'm so hyped with the start we have. So it's been a really fun, month and a half start to the season over there where you can find all of our premium picks and SquirrelPatrol and the rest of them. And everyone on this show puts our premium picks in and we're crushing it. You can sign up on FanDuel Sportsbook as well if you're in a legal sports betting state. No sweat, first bet, up to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. All right, now that housekeeping's out of the way, let's get on to the fun, and we'll go position by position here as we normally do. I'll throw it over to Kristi first. We'll talk about quarterbacks here. Obviously, the Eagles-Cowboys game, not on the main slate. That a lot of firepower in that 4 p.m. window. Talk to me, though. Do you have any thoughts on Tom Brady going up against Pittsburgh, where the entire secondary is completely decimated?
Yeah, so quarterback is super interesting because we're going to see just a ton of ownership in that late slate. Josh Allen is leading the trend there. I mean, just a fantastic play this week. I think, and he's someone that I'm going overweight on for sure. I want exposure to that game. He has so many weapons. It should just be an absolute high-powered offense on both sides. So love Allen, think he's a great cash and GPP play. You mentioned Brady. I think he is a fantastic tournament play. He was super popular for a tournament play last week. Didn't quite get there the way we expected. I think he's a great person to turn to this week. Going back a little bit to, if you're not paying up for Josh Allen, I think Geno Smith is going to certainly carry some ownership. Never expected to say his name this far into the year, but his numbers are absolutely fantastic. And he's been getting it done with Metcalf and Lockett. So if I'm not paying up, I have a lot of interest in Geno Smith for sure. Kyler Murray in that Arizona-Seattle game on the other side, I think he's a fantastic option this week and one that's carrying a little bit of ownership as well. And then Patrick Mahomes, in that game, he's carrying less ownership than Josh Allen, but, he's got a lot of weapons. Kelsey scored 4 touchdowns last week, so he still looks his way a ton. So I think Mahomes is a fantastic play. And then probably one of the best GPP plays, I think, maybe Squirrel wrote him up, but Lamar Jackson in that Baltimore Giants game. I think he's a fantastic play. You can play him by himself, but with Bateman out this week, I think Andrews is certainly going to be popular, and then Duvernay. So I think there's some great options there too. Last guy I'll mention is Joe Burrow. Just always have to mention him. I have a lot of interest in Chase this week and Mixon and some of those guys. So I think he's a fantastic GPP play as well.
Yeah, Dre, a lot of firepower at quarterback today. Who you got your eyes on?
Well, I mean, I'm trying to work it out right now to make it even, but I really, really, really like Kyler Murray a lot, Geno Smith, Lamar Jackson, and a little bit of Tom Brady, and obviously Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, my guy. I love him a lot today. Going against my favorite team, but what can you do with your two favorite teams going against each other? You gotta root for the underdog, I guess, in this case. But I think it's a big slate, but it's hard to get away from. Honestly, a lot of industry talk is talking about obviously the guys like Josh Allen, and they think that Buffalo's going to blow them out. I mean, everyone thinks Buffalo's going to blow out KC. KC has hung around so many games and has found a way to win in every single type of game possible. So I love taking a lot of Patrick Mahomes today. Like, and the way that KC plays defense with Steve Spagnuolo, what is he famous for? For beating the Patriots and game planning and scheming to beat that team when Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback of all time. So why don't you think he's going to scheme a game plan to take away Stephon Diggs out the game? I love Gabe Davis at the spot too. I think he's going to have a good game. They're going to let Gabe Davis eat, but keep Diggs in check and keep that running game in check. And I think, honestly, personally, KC wins today. They're going to win ugly, but they're going to win. And that's just my thing. I think that game was also under. But I like both those quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes would be the way to go for me. But Geno Smith is like at the top of the Geno Smith, Kyler Murray, both of them are at the top, followed by Joe Burrow. And then tied with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, Pat Mahomes as an underdog, as a Chiefs starter, is 7-0-1, I think, against the spread. So, transitive properties in the NFL don't exist. Oh, Kansas City looked bad against Vegas for 3 quarters. You tell me something that carries over week to week in the NFL consistently, and and I don't know what to tell you anymore. So I love the take on the Chiefs. I do like Lamar. I filled in for Eric Beinfor on the Underworld Stackfest show, which was a lot of fun with Dario and Matt. And I thought they were going to kick me out when I said, hey, I'm considering running a Lamar team with Mark Andrews and Darius Slayton maybe on the run back because I'm throwing one bullet in, which makes me feel terrible. But small sample size, Darius Slayton is leading the NFL in air yards over the last 2 weeks. Air yard market share, you never know. We'll see. Anyway, A lot of good quarterbacks you can get at low ownership because of those 2 games with a lot of firepower. So we'll see how that plays out. We could talk forever, but let's go on to running back, and we'll keep going on here so we can get to some questions toward the end. A lot of chalk, a lot of value opening up, and it should be an interesting ride this week. So, Kristi, talk to me about running back today.
Yeah, running back to me, I really like it. We get a ton of cheap options, and I actually think there's a lot of good chalk mixed in there. So it really allows us to pay up at receiver or tight end or some other positions. So for me, I'm paying down at running back a ton. Now it's just kind of deciding on, who are your favorite guys. So you look at Eno Benjamin, 4,600 on DraftKings. I think he's one of the best plays on the slate, like him a ton. Ramondre Stevenson, expected to carry some high ownership too. I think he's great. We did get word that Harris is out of the game. I know he was still kind of questionable, or a game time decision. So Stevenson's awesome. I actually even like pairing him with the Patriots defense. We've got Darrell Henderson, who was kind of late to the game yesterday with Akers being announced out. So he's going to get a ton of run. And then Kenneth Walker. So you've got kind of those 4 guys in the cheaper mix there. And I think they're all great plays. Walker gets the backfield to himself as well with no Rashad Penny. And Stevenson, obviously, like I said, is very cheap too. So I like all 4 of those guys. So anything other than those guys is going to be great tournament plays. And there's a lot of great ones in there. I wrote up Joe Mixon. I think he's a great play, especially on FanDuel. He's priced pretty similarly to guys like Stevenson. So I think he's great. He's only gotten 1 touchdown this year, but I think he has an opportunity to hit it big today. I think Breece Hall is an interesting tournament pivot over on DraftKings for sure. Someone that's super interesting. And then Devin Singletary, if you're looking for someone in that Bills game and maybe they don't end up getting some of the passing touchdowns that you expect, I think he's certainly an interesting pivot. Always have interest in Leonard Fournette. We talked about that Tampa Bay game. He's just been getting it done, getting the touches, putting up a lot of points. If you're paying up, that would certainly be a unique option. Some other cheap options that I think are interesting. This is probably more so on FanDuel, but I think A.J. Dillon, he's really cheap over there this week in that Green Bay game. I think he finally starts to see some positive variance. So certainly don't mind him. Aaron Jones mixed in there a little bit in that Green Bay game. And then again, guys like Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb always go overlooked, but you'll get them at really low ownership if you get away from some of the cheap running back chalk. But for me, I'm sticking with the cheap plays today and paying up at receiver.
Hey, Dre, I got a question in our Discord. So 1 question. So I'll go there, and it's pretty much involving running backs. So let me just ask you this one. FanDuel Cash, Dre. Would you rather have Darrell Henderson, Kenneth Walker, and the Rams defense, or your boy Stevenson, Eno Benjamin, and the Bengals defense for FanDuel Cash?
I'm gonna say the first one.
And I think I understood that question correctly. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. But
it's hard to, but I think the first one is the better way because Bengals defense. I would say because the Saints have a lot of guys out. Did we not just see what Taysom Hill did last week to everybody? I like Taysom Hill a lot today. I would play him in one lineup for all the money or the Billy Baker, but I just have to go with the first one. I think it's just a better situation. We got a backup quarterback in for the let's play against the Rams defense and PJ Walker. I just like that run a lot better.
Yeah, a lot of interesting points we can make about defenses this week, for one. So maybe the Rams give you more of an upside in that combination. Give me some more about the running back position. I'm sure you got some thoughts here before we move on.
Running back, I like a lot of guys. Like obviously we have the popular plays where we got Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, Eno Benjamin. I think there was one more. Who was Henderson. Those are like the top 4 guys. I'm surprised Jackson didn't get that much steam going against Jacksonville, but I like him a lot today. Going against Jacksonville today. I do also like Breece Hall. His price is just to come up enough at 5.8. He's only going to be 8% owned, so I'm well over the field on him. I like Jeff Wilson Jr. as well, going against Atlanta, who is a porous run deep, who's porous against the run. So that's someone I think I know I have a lot of interest in. And if you want to, when I'm spending up, I want to get to guys like Nick Chubb. I want to get a little bit of Christian McCaffrey because PJ Walker I know is going to target him and go and he has a chance for a good game. I also do like go with another person. I forgot the low end as Raheem Mostert. Now that he got ruled in, I think that's another great option, especially if you're running like a Jefferson. If you don't even have to run like a Kirk Cousins game sack, but if you run like a Jefferson Mostert sack, I like that a lot today. So those are the guys I'm really mainly looking at. I do like sprinkling in some guys like Aaron Jones here and there. I love Saquon, especially I'm using him as my run back when I'm playing Lamar Jackson. Joe Mixon is a guy I like to get to a little bit too, and Alvin Kamara. I forgot about him, but like he's probably one of my most exposed running backs. And just 6'7" is too cheap, and he's gonna have to be do it all for him today, for the Saints today.
I like it. Yeah, let's move on to wide receiver. 12:42 Eastern, guys. We are almost here for a new week of NFL action. So let's go to wide receiver. You see Stephon Diggs on the top of that list. I'm going to stick right here with Dre. You think maybe they'll figure out a way to slow down Stephon Diggs? So are you kind of pumping the brakes on Diggs today in that game, Dre?
I'm like if I look right now, I am underweight on Diggs. Diggs I have 3 lineups with Stephon Diggs in it. I'm only running like 50 lineups today, but I have only 3 of them with him in. I'm well underweight on him. I'd rather play Gabe Davis. I like Isaiah McKenzie a lot today. I like those secondary pieces a lot more. Knox as well. But like some of my favorite wide receivers are not even from that game, nor and not even from. Well, obviously I like the Seattle guys too, but my favorite wide receivers, I like Alec Pierce a lot. From Indy. Like he's just been a target monster for this team since he's been back, and we see that he's healthy. He's had at least 60 yards. He's had at least 60 yards in each game that he's played so far this season. And the targets has gone up each week. First it was 5, 6, and then 9. I can see him still getting the same amount of target, about 8 to 9 targets this game going against Jacksonville, especially now without their running backs. And I think that's a direct correlation. So him being at 4.3 on DK, I am significantly overweight. He's probably one of my highest exposed wide receivers. He is my highest exposed wide receiver today. I think he's in a great spot, a little bit of way to get off the chalk and also pay a low price. I also do like Christian Kirk on the opposite side of that game too. Coach talking about getting him more targets. I think that's a great spot for him. And one more guy that's going to be low owned because his price is DJ Moore. I am high on DJ Moore. He is one of my most exposed receivers as well. PJ Walker, we were going over this on the FanDuel Friday show, and TJ brought up this stat was saying that he was that PJ Walker, he has I think some of his best games with PJ Walker, his best 2 games, I believe, fantasy wise and production wise. So I'm going back to that well right there. It's a tough matchup. DJ Moore's going to be targeted a lot in this game, and I expect him to have a big game here. So I have just a lot of those guys mainly, and obviously I'm sprinkling guys like Marquise Brown, who I like a lot, but Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, who I like a lot, but I'm a little bit lower on them now just because of all the – I just don't know. I'm so iffy on that situation with the Saints because I wonder how much they're going to use they're going to use Taysom Hill and let Andy Dalton just ride it out, which is a revenge spot for him, by the way. But I also do like Jacoby Myers a lot, and Amari Cooper, Justin Jefferson. I get any ownership. Neither is Amari or Cooper Cup as well. So I'm interested in too.
Kristi, you have Gabe Davis and Marquez Valdez-Scantling tagged on lineup HQ. So talk to me a little bit about those 2 plays.
Yeah, so Gabe Davis really is my favorite play on the slate. I mean, last week he's fully healthy. We saw what he did. He, ripped off a 98-yard touchdown to start off the game. I mean, he's just made for big plays, and he's healthy, and we saw what he did against him during the playoff run when he had 4 touchdowns, last January. So I just think he's the best play. I'm way overweight on him as opposed to Diggs. I think it just makes sense. And his price is still good. He hasn't really moved on DK, about the same price. And then on FanDuel too, he's really the same as well. So like him a ton. Guys like Cooper Kupp, always just a fantastic play. He just gets the volume, gets it done, but he's expensive. But you can pay up for him this week with the cheap running backs that are out there. So I like him a lot. Over on DraftKings, you've got, a guy like Rondell Moore in that Arizona-Seattle game and Tyler Lockett that are still very underpriced. So those two, I think, are just phenomenal plays. Lockett, just his price just hasn't moved at all. So like him a ton. I throw DK Metcalf in there too. We talked about Geno Smith. I like, both Lockett and Metcalf, especially in those stacks there. And then Justin Jefferson, always have interest in him just because that offense just goes through him. I just think he's a great spend up option this week. Both he and Kupp are. And we talked about Jamar Chase. Higgins certainly is in the game, but, Jamar Chase going back to his old stomping grounds. I think he's going to have a lot of fans there. So if you want to play the narrative a little bit too, but I just think Chase, this could be the breakout that we're looking for. So I have a lot of interest there. You mentioned Gabe Davis already. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I like his price and I like that game a lot. Juju just hasn't gotten it done. And, certainly there's some risk in it, but I also like that for tournaments too. So I think the upside is certainly there. And I think a lot of those guys can hit multiple touchdowns today. That's why I think he's, great. Hollywood Brown, another great spend up option this week. Really nice price point over on DK. And then some of those Tampa Bay guys, Godwin, great play. Mike Evans. But yeah, I would say, for me, Jamar Chase, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Gabe Davis and I throw Justin Jefferson in there too, probably some of my favorite tournament plays. And then for cheap, I really do like Rondell Moore and Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
Okay. 12:48 p.m. Eastern, start piecing it together. We'll go through tight end and then we'll take some questions. If you have any defense questions, just drop them in. We'll cover defense if anybody has any questions. Some firepower at the tight end position here. I'll just start off by saying Zach Ertz is probably my favorite salary saver at the position. Love the upside Mark Andrews has in that matchup. He's garnering a ton of ownership, especially without Bateman. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a field day today, by the way. They're a gap run team, and the Giants are the worst defending gap run team in the league. So I just kind of feel like it's a Lamar day. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I was looking for a reason to kind of slightly not fully stack that Kansas City game. I do have some exposure to it, but anyway, Andrews is squarely in play for me. Although I will say we're projecting Travis Kelce at just 10%, which I think is just kind of ridiculous, and it might be a little higher, especially in high dollar stuff. Dre, Kelce's coming off a game where he caught 30,000 touchdowns. I don't think I'm exaggerating. The last 4 games that Kansas City played Buffalo, I think I got to look it back up, but I think Kelce has 6 touchdowns in those 4 games. So where do you go with these high-end tight ends? Are you having heavy exposure to these guys?
From what I have Mark Andrews as my top guy here. I just love the spot for him. I think he's just without who's out, Duvernay's out, so I understand Bateman's going to be targeted a lot too, but Mark Andrews is the number one guy. He loves the tight end targeting him, so I like Mark Andrews to go off today, but I do like Hayden Hurst a lot. I think that's another guy we forget about too. He's going to be a little bit on the lower end side of mid range, but he is going to be getting a lot of work in there just because of the situation. I expect his ownership to come down because T. Higgins is back. We don't know if T. Higgins is going to even play. That's the thing we have to figure out. I would be hesitant on playing T. Higgins today, just for that simple reason. I know Kirkwood mentioned earlier Zach Gentry. I think he's a good decent play today. 2.6 is cheap, especially all he needs to do is catch a touchdown for you, and you just got to hope that a guy like Travis Kelce doesn't go off, or Mark Andrews doesn't have a huge monster game, and you're right there in the money for it too. But Kelce he's played pretty well against this team, but that was also when Tyreek Hill was there. I'm actually really interested to see how this plays out this year without Tyreek Hill against Buffalo. So. I am like the field a little bit lower on it just because of that specific reason, but I don't blame anyone for being well over the field on it because he could be a smash spot, and I'm just being hesitant on it.
Kristi, anybody else other than the guys we mentioned that you're looking at for tournament options at tight end?
No, for me, well, I would say Dawson Knox. I really like him. I just think it could be a situation like last week, the field overlooked Gabe Davis a little bit, and he could score a couple touchdowns. He's healthy. He's super cheap on both sites, so I'm certainly more overweight on him for tournaments. And I'm also overweight on Travis Kelce in that game, just because I think Andrews is really the guy. He makes a lot of sense. And then people are probably paying more down for Zach Gentry, especially on DK. So I would say Kelce and Knox are two guys that I have the most interest in.
Cool. We got like 9 minutes, so let's answer
I
some
also
of these.
like Evan Ingram a lot today too.
I like that call. Yeah, we got like 9 minutes to lock, so let's try to lightning around some of these questions here. I'm going to start in the Discord. Carolina guy, what's up, Carolina guy? Thanks for tuning in, as usual. Kristi, FanDuel, single entry. Do you have a favorite stack? I mean, I feel like you're going to say something in that game we just talked about.
I am. For me, I like for my single entry, I'm going the Kansas City Buffalo with Josh Allen. So for me, that's what it is.
Cool. Let's see. DK Cash, Dre. Would you go Kamara and Hayden Hurst or Walker and Higbee?
Walker Higbee.
All right, cool. Let me jump over to the YouTube chat here while I'm battling the spam. Let's see. DraftKings Cash, Kristi. Chris Godwin and Mark Andrews or Stephon Diggs and Higbee?
I'd say the first one.
All right. Dre, question from Rob in the YouTube chat. FanDuel Cash, Stephon Diggs and Tyler Higbee or DK Metcalf and Mark Andrews?
DK Metcalf, Mark Andrews.
All right. How much usage do you see Benjamin getting at 4,600? I'm assuming he means like actual usage. I don't know. You think he's going to get a decent workload, Kristi, between pass catching and carries today?
I do. I think he is set up really well just because, I mean, Connor's out, Williams out. I feel really good about him. And out of all the cheap guys, he's probably my favorite over on DK.
Okay. I feel like I'm missing some questions here. Not sure, though. I'll try to circle back. I don't know if my feed is slipping up or not. Question from Derek I'm seeing. DK GPP, Dre. Any interest in Otten as a pivot off Gentry?
I don't know how much he's going to be splitting time with Cameron Brake, so I honestly don't really like it because I don't know how much time he's going to get. That's my only concern.
Gotcha. Let's see. Yeah, so my feed is screwing up a little bit, so I apologize. Let me backtrack here. Dre, what's the first question you see that I didn't address? I think between Derek's and a couple other ones on the YouTube, I must have missed some.
I see. Did I get it wrong with Duvernay being out, or is it Duvernay or is it Bateman?
Bateman's out. Bateman is out. Yeah.
All right, Bateman's out. I have FanDuel Cash, Rams D or Jags D, separate lineup. Panthers D or Bengals D.
Okay, yeah. See, I missed all those. All right, yeah. So FanDuel Cash. What do you answer that one? Go ahead. What are you thinking?
What were the choices for FanDuel or the defense?
Rams D, Jags D, and then another lineup is Panthers D or Bengals D. Both cash.
For cash on FanDuel, I'd probably say Rams if you can get to it, but I do like both Rams and Jags, but Rams for cash. And then probably Panthers for cash over on DK because they're so cheap. It'll allow you to get a lot of firepower in your lineups.
Cool. There's a couple in the Discord I do see. Kristi, Valdez Scantling or Rondell Moore in FanDuel Cash?
For cash, I would say Moore. I Scantling probably more tournament, but I think Moore is your cash guy.
Okay. DK Cash question. Dre, I'll throw this one to you from Hutch Boy. Diggs and Higbee or Davis and Andrews?
Diggs and Higbee. Diggs Higbee.
Yeah, Diggs Higbee. I'm with you on that one. 1255 guys. I see a DJ Moore or Kenneth Walker question. What are your thoughts on that one, Kristi?
Like as far as playing them or just?
I think it's a 1v1.
1v1. I would say Walker.
Okay. This one's for you. Question for Krayton, the GOAT of FanDuel Cash. Love it. All right, Kristi. Debo and Romeo Dobbs or Tyler Lockett and Rondell Moore for cash?
I would say Lockett and Moore for cash.
All right. Hey, Dre, I got a 3v3. I think I'm back now. Chase, Higbee, and Kamara or Godwin, Andrews, Henderson for cash?
Where did that lineup go? Oh, my goodness. Sorry, I was just working on a lot of it. It just disappeared on me.
Okay, I'll throw it over to Kristi.
Oh Lord.
Chase, Higbee, Kamara, or Godwin, Andrews, Henderson for DK Cash, Kristi.
I would say Godwin, Andrews, and Henderson.
All right, question from Junior. He said, please help me, Kristi.
Okay.
Darrell Henderson or Jeff Wilson? What are your thoughts?
I like Henderson today. I know there's a couple other guys that are potentially in the rotation, but I think when Henderson has gotten the volume without Akers in the mix, he has just gotten it done. So I'm going Henderson.
Yeah, Junior, if that's a cash game question, I'm playing Henderson, no doubt. I like them both, though, for tournaments. Would Kelsey and Knox in the same lineup for DK be a good idea? I think it's fine. I actually have 2 tight ends in my single entry build today, and one of them is Kelsey.
Yeah. I like Knox a ton, so I like that. And I think Kelsey is going way overlooked because of Andrews. So I like that a lot.
I agree. I cannot believe 10% ownership is what we're
I
projecting.
can't either. Yeah.
One more, I got to see a FanDuel cash question from Kevin. Kristi, I'll stick with you while Dre's looking for his lineup. Rondell Moore, Marquez Callaway, or Romeo Dobbs for FanDuel cash?
Moore, Dobbs, and who was the other one?
Marquez Callaway.
I would say Rondell Moore.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rondell Moore for cash as well. Okay, DK Cash from JMVP. What's up? Hope all is well. Walker or Henderson for cash? Man, that is like the $1 million question today, isn't it?
It is.
What are you thinking?
You know what? I would go Walker actually in this one, I believe, but I like them both and have exposure to both. But I would, if I had a gun to my head, I would say Walker.
Yeah, that's so tough.
It is.
This was supposed to be Cam Akers week. Man,
I know.
Hope all is well in that situation. We don't really know what's happening there, do we?
No, we don't.
All right. I think I'm caught up on questions. I'm sorry if I missed any. You can fire them in real quick while we're sitting here before lock, 12:58. If I did miss any, I apologize. Do you have you know what? Let me ask you this. We didn't really talk about Tampa Bay, but I just can't stop thinking about that secondary in Pittsburgh. Is Leonard Fournette in play in this game script too? We didn't really mention him.
I think he is. I do. No, I do. And I just think, yeah, he's a great GPP play only because there's all these cheap running back plays. So yes, I think he's a great play and there's plenty of game script for him.
Cool.
Oh my gosh.
You got this, Dre.
Oh.
This is a live crisis right now, folks. So.
Live crisis.
You're only in front of 400 people, Dre, so it's fine. Man. Anyway, I actually wrote up 2 premium scores and odds picks today. I took Debo over 58.5 receiving yards. I wrote him up a couple days ago, and I took Metcalf over 68.5. Both lines moved a little bit, but Chris, you're big at the prop game. How critical is it to get these lines early in the week when you can?
Very early. It really is because even as I was writing my article too, it's just the line moved significantly and things like that. So early, the earlier the better for sure.
I have noticed that FanDuel has been putting their lines out. I know they sponsor our show later than some of the other books. I kind of choosing their words wisely, but it seems like DK and Caesars are putting prop lines out a little bit earlier in the week, which is interesting. So Kevin said thanks and shout out to Kristi for the Pats D call last week. So
yeah.
Awesome stuff. 12:59. Save your lineups and don't lose them. Dre, are you okay over there?
I just made it in, man. I literally just I couldn't get the lineups in the way I wanted them to, but it's going to fall. It's going to be what's going to be.
You're just prepping for NBA season, the 659 NBA CSV swap, right?
Pretty much. Just was. NBA is so much worse. Like if I don't get it, I'm just like whatever. I'll just stack a later game. But this is because football is rough, especially these early games. I wanted to get a lot of them much of them as I can, and I hope I did. I'm nervous that I didn't go through. Let me check my lineups to make sure. Okay, they are in, folks. They are in business. They are in.
Chili in the chat said at least he got the fresh cut.
Oh yes, I needed it.
Yeah, I noticed it.
Yeah, I'm about to get ready to start another new job. I'll be a flight attendant, so I'll be working for.
Are you really?
Yep, I'm going to be in the air, traveling.
Nice.
So I like that. It'd be perfect. You could do the DFS stuff more, go to the air, go to different games in different states. And yeah. And then
hopefully you can schedule your flights to legal sports betting states.
Oh, yes. That is the plan.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you. So if I'm a little bit MIA for a little bit, y'all know why.
TJ Zwarych in the chat. Good to hear from you again. Thanks for tuning in. I guess that's it. Before we get out of here, I want two winner predictions of the Kansas City Buffalo game and the Eagles Cowboys game. So, Dre, you're ready in deep thought there. So I'll let you go first.
I already have it. I think I really do think KC wins today outright. I already took the plus money line on it. And I do for tonight's game. I think Eagles get their first loss tonight. I think Cooper Rush is the real deal. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he can manage that game, beat that secondary. And Dallas defense just looks so good. So I like those two underdogs to win today.
Cool. Kristi, what do you think?
I like it. I do think Buffalo is going to pull it out, but I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people expect. And I actually think the same thing, Dre. I think actually Dallas gets the win tonight. Cooper Rush is pretty good. Dallas D's good. So yeah, that's my call as well.
Yep. I'm going to go with Bills by a nose, but I think it's close. And I'm going to take the Birds. And I'm just going to have a little glass of tequila. I watched the Yankees meltdown again last night.
Please don't say that. Don't. We got to keep the positive vibes, man.
It went to someone. I don't have a therapist, Dre. I need to know. It's just brutal, man. So anyway, let's get out of here. Producer Steve, I know that brought you a little smile since the Mets were out. I know any Yankees loss is a win for you. So I'll just keep you muted over there. Don't you dare come on and go with me. So for Kristi and Dre, thank you guys. And thanks for tuning in the chat. And producer Steve, I'm TheLuuch. We'll see you later. Good luck, everybody.